Okay, I think we're live.
Okay.
Cool. Welcome, everybody. This is Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal, and today I'm very excited to have a special guest with me. I have Ellie from the channel called The Flemface. So,
Hello.
hi, Ellie.
Hello.
Welcome.
Nice to see you. It's good to be on here.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is kind of like a long time coming.
I know, it's weird. I'm just thinking now, I don't think I've actually been on your channel for anything.
No, and I've been
No.
meaning to kind of do it sooner. So, I mean, we've been chatting on Twitter for like how long now? I don't know.
Maybe like a year. It's
A
over
year.
a year now.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Come on, what have we been doing? Right.
Yeah, I know.
Got a lot of catching up to do.
The last time, the February videos,
Oh
we were
my
always like
gosh.
chatting about those.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I can't wait till this February. It's
Yeah.
going to be beautiful.
Yeah. I really wonder if they've learned anything, or are they just going to keep trying it again? I wonder. I don't know.
Weirdly, you say that. I saw a tweet from Jude Kappa today.
Oh, no. I thought she was gone. I didn't realize.
No, she's back at her same old tricks, trying to tell you butter's like a health food. But she's blocked me, so I won't be able to see as much as anyone else.
Too.
But hashtag blocked by Jude Kappa. Yeah. I can't wait. It's gonna be good.
It should be good. I guess we'll have to go in like stealth mode, like have a
non-logged
in account, and then
I have a different account now, so it's gonna be brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. But anyway, so I don't know. We'll see how many people are in. Right now we have 3 people viewing, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Today we are going to be talking about hunting, specifically kind of like as it relates to fox hunting and hunting in the UK, and talking about hunt saboteurs and the work that they do and why it's important. And really, I just kind of I wanted to put this together with you because you live in the UK and you've been on a hunt sabbing efforts, and you've highlighted a lot of their efforts on your channel and your Twitter. And the thing is, like, from my experience, like I come from mostly a US background, and there was a lot of confusing terminology we were just talking about like before we went live, that for me from the US background, it was like the difference between the whole like British English versus the American English, like some things were getting lost in translation, and I actually didn't realize just how bad some of this stuff was. I had some misunderstandings, and the more I kind of read articles and the more I was kind of reading the background of things, then it kind of dawned on me just this past, like, I don't know, week and a half, was like, whoa, like that's what that's about. Like I didn't even really get it. So just differences between, like, in the US, like when I hear trail, like I always think of a running trail or like something in the woods that's like a marked trail. And that's what I thought this was about, that I thought people were upset that the hunters were going on like a marked like hiking trail, and that they were hunting there. And I thought that's what people are upset about. And then it turns out that that's totally not the case.
No.
So I think what I want to do is really just kind of give it to you for maybe just like a really quick overview of kind of like how fox hunting was banned and what the trail hunting means. And, and then we can just start from there. So maybe if you just want to take the lead. And
absolutely. Yeah. So fox hunting was banned in, I think, 2004. I think it's quite a while ago now. But essentially it was banned because it was deemed unethical. But there are loopholes that still technically allow it to happen, i.e. if they're following a trail, which is like the scent of, usually they argue it's like a scent of a decoy, which isn't actually a fox. And there is another way you can get around with it, because with the huntsmen, you have the terrier men, and they have the quad bikes. And if they are, usually they go a bit ahead of the huntsman, and if they are on site to be able to shoot and kill a fox as they're being pursued by hounds, then they can get away essentially with doing it and not getting in trouble. But yeah, it is really, they argue that foxes are pests, so the public aren't so unhappy with it. But it is, at the end of the day, a traditional sport that they do that involves a lot of different animals. And when you see what they're doing to these foxes, it's awful. Like all these hounds, if they catch the fox, they rip the fox to shreds. It's just like a something entertaining for the prestigious people. And I think that's why it's continued to happen, because when you actually look at who these hunters are, they're MPs, they're head of their police chiefs, they're lawyers, you know, they're very high up. And I think that's why it's been permitted to, all these loopholes haven't been filled in, essentially.
Yeah, cool. So I think that's a good overview. And from what I've seen and what I've kind of learned and what got me interested in the topic more is that because there's such a kind of like a position of privilege of the people who are doing it, they often turn a blind eye even when there is a stark violation of the letter of the law. So even though they have these loopholes, even when people go beyond the loophole, it's not even in the loophole anymore, they still get away with it because the hunt saboteurs will call out the police and the police won't do anything, or they'll just they just won't file a report. I mean, I've seen stories on mainstream media and of course like social media where people have video footage of violence from the side of the hunters and things like that, like people being chased in SUVs and all this kind of stuff, and still nothing happens. And it's like you have a license plate number, you have video footage of the person smashing a window or doing stuff like that, and it just, like nothing happens.
Yeah, that's a lot of why SABs film everything, because they know that nothing's going to happen. So they compile the evidence anyway, and they send it to the police. But if it fails, then they just put it out on Facebook and to the public eye to show people what it is that actually happens. Because if saboteurs didn't, people wouldn't see it at all. It would just be hidden. And obviously, as you're saying, there's prestigious people doing it. They're not gonna let people know, because if they saw it happening, they wouldn't be for it. But yeah, that is why there is so much of it filmed. You know, the SABs go out with body cams, absolutely everything, just in the hopes that they will file it, and if it doesn't go through, if no one's convicted, which is majority of the time the case, they can show people the negligence of the authorities. They can show people the straight up unfairness. Like, imagine if this was, a different class of people doing, just as criminal, that it would be different rules for different fools. So it's the power of the internet kind of in play. So
yeah, and I think that's kind of why I really wanted to do this, because the more we can highlight it in social media, I mean, that helps spread awareness. And I think really, like, outside of the UK, probably nobody's aware of it. And that's my experience anyway, from like the people that I know in the US, and I didn't know about it.
I talk about sabbing on my channel, and a lot of time people say, "Oh, I didn't know about this. I didn't, wow, I want to know more about this." And there's so many different groups. So like in the UK, we have like counties. Or instead of counties, you'll have just kind of subsets of the UK, i.e. like West Midlands or 3 counties. And though every single one of those has a SAB group, because the SABs in the UK, we don't just do SAB the fox hunting. There's also the badger culling. So constantly you have the Facebook groups that are always active. Especially, I think, up in the north and in the southeast, it's massive. And but obviously, even you keep the share in the circles you have. It's closer to home here, so we're going to know all about it, as you say. And there is actually sabbing that happens. I was talking to you earlier about this in different parts of the world, like in Australia, you have the sabbing against the kangaroo hunting. You have in Malta, they glue trap birds and they sabotage those. But it's not just a case of filming in the UK. There is more that's done. I don't know if you've ever smelt citronella before or heard about its properties, but if you spray citronella, and it's a kind of natural chemical.
I think it's a bug repellent, right? Like it's the stuff that's in like candles and stuff for your patio or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you use, and basically it's so strong that it puts the hounds off the trail. So basically you are trying to sabotage the hunt i.e. you're trying to film any illegal activity that's going to happen. And you're also trying to just stop, like you're constantly trying to beat the hounds essentially, which is really hard because they're so fast, but it can be very successful if you're spraying right, if you're tactical. It's a lot of driving and running and but it's a hard day's work, and there are people who do it literally every single day. I just don't know how they do it. But
it must be an emotional roller coaster too. I mean, it's like it's so I don't know. It's like I want to almost use the word exciting, but I don't mean it in a good way. Like oh, I watched a great movie, but it's more like an adrenaline kind of like. I mean, it's like a life and death kind of situation, literally for the foxes, but for the people, they're in danger. I mean, they're literally kind of racing around, and oftentimes, like I say, the hunters are very, very aggressive towards them. I definitely encourage anybody watching, if you haven't seen any of these kind of videos yet, like follow some of my posts on Twitter or Ellie's posts, or just search for some of the SAB groups, and you'll see the videos. I mean, these people are getting attacked physically. They're being whipped from horseback. The horses are sometimes like pushed like right over onto people, like they're basically riding over people. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me that nobody's been killed yet, like from the SAB group, honestly, because these hunters are really out of control. I mean, it's like it's really bad.
I believe there actually was someone who was killed during a SAB. I don't know if it actually was, but I remember I can't actually remember his name, but there was a guy who was an animal rights activist, and he was hit by a van, and to this day nobody's been convicted because it was an accident, apparently. And I think because of where the location was, he was like run over in a countryside at like a gate. I'm pretty sure it was through sabbing, but I might be wrong. Maybe Barry Horn or somebody. I might be getting mixed up, but I could look that up actually while we're looking. But yeah, there's a big tension between the two groups, obviously, because there's a massive, you got the SABs who are ethically opposed to what they're doing. They're literally killing animals for sport. And then you've got the SAB, the huntsmen, who are very, they want to go out and kill this animal, especially the terrier men. They're kind of, they seem a bit more on edge. They seem thirsted by because they go out and like dig there is footage of them digging out the foxholes to kind of get the fox to come out. And so then the fox bolts and the hounds chase. But yeah, when you've got people who have a tense clash, and you've got a group of people who are on horses, which are, they can be weaponized because they're just so big.
They're literally sitting way above you, so it's like, they
do have
a height advantage.
Exactly. And in the few times I've been, they've just they've passed through without saying, "Oh, excuse me," and I've nearly personally been run over by a horse. So it wouldn't surprise me to hear of the many encounters that people who regularly go out have had. And it happens a lot. There is so much footage, like every single week. At one point I was seeing people being antagonized, be it with body parts of animals being thrown in on their cars and whatever. You see windows being smashed. There was a video of a guy, he was smashing in a lady's car windows, just smashing them in. I don't even know if he got in trouble. This is the problem. You assume that these people don't get in trouble for what they do. There's a real imbalance. But because if we did anything, we'd be terrorists, like flat out.
Right.
And that's why I think the SABs, I'm not saying they would if they could, but I think that SABs behave a lot better than the huntsmen do, because there's an imbalance in what they can get away with. And obviously, if you're a vegan and you're representing a group that's already hated, I think you have that in mind. So,
yeah, and I mean, I think that's the right approach anyway, because it's always best to take the moral high ground in these situations, I think, because then there's nothing they can use against you. It's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right, because of the people who are doing this. I mean, you have to realize too, like if anybody doesn't know, but I mean, like having a horse or even just taking horse riding lessons or anything, all of this stuff costs a ridiculous amount of money. And especially if you're keeping a horse, like if you have an actual horse, I doubt that there are very many poor people going out and doing these hunts. Like these are all pretty well off, well connected, business people in positions of power and authority, and they're probably used to getting their way. So it probably goes along hand in hand with what you said, that if they don't get their way, they become probably belligerent and angry. And yeah, it's just like you have to be really careful around those kind of people, because I'm sure if one of the SABs did anything, like I'm sure it would be like every measure of the law would go against them, and they would probably face stiff punishment.
Exactly. And just to clarify, I mentioned Barry Horn thinking that he was the guy, but he actually wasn't. He was a guy who went on a 68-day hunger strike. He wanted to end animal testing, and that didn't end, and he died. I'm going to try and find the name of the guy who I think was killed during a SAB. But there have been a few activists in the UK who have been killed. Like Jill Phipps. I don't know if you've heard of her.
No.
It was a live export truck, and she got hit by it. And apparently it was an accident that the driver didn't see her, but she was directly in front of it. So I don't know how you couldn't see, but yeah, we've had a lot of activists that have just passed through their efforts. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but
I don't know of any, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if there were, because yeah, a lot of times these things just go in the favor of the people, in position of power.
Yeah,
so it's really sad, and hopefully things change. There's another aspect that I also wanted to touch on, which was actually quite surprising to me, is that the hounds themselves, a lot of people don't realize, but there are tons and tons of the dogs that are killed by the huntsman, because the hounds by themselves, by their nature, wouldn't be this aggressive towards the foxes. So they actually have to be taught to be that aggressive. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they take them as puppies and they train them to basically go and tear the fox apart. And they do that by taking fox pups, and they make the puppy dogs go and basically brutalize and attack the fox pups. And
I'm assuming you've seen the video. Have you seen the video of that?
I actually haven't seen it. I've just read about it, but I know
chilling.
There is video, and yeah, I mean, I was actually talking about this in a live stream yesterday. That, I mean, there's so much video that I can watch, and some that I get pretty upset about as well. I mean, this is very upsetting. If anybody, just looks at any of this stuff, but I mean, even just reading about it, it's pretty chilling. And so yeah, I actually had a recent news article where I saw that they estimate that several thousand hounds, I can actually look it up because I have it, thousands of healthy hounds, including pups, are clubbed to death or shot if they're deemed unsuitable for the hunt. So that's pretty much every year. There's several thousand dogs. It's hard to get an exact number because it's obviously not something that they report on, but they say that every year, because they have to, replace the old ones and the ones that are kind of injured or die out. And they're saying that it's very likely that there's several thousand every year that get killed if they're not deemed, aggressive enough, or so it's just crazy. I mean, they're saying it's maybe around 10,000, I think. Yeah, it says
10,000. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I did not know that.
And that's just the dogs. So if nothing else, I think that, if somebody was just a dog person and they didn't even care about the foxes, if nothing else, they should just be opposed to this practice, because they would be sorry for the dogs. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's horrible, and I think this is kind of the thing that really got me when I started reading up on all this stuff, that there's a lot of kind of weird hypocrisy. Most people, I would say, in the UK are going to be opposed to, say, the Yulin Dog Festival, or most people in the US would be horrified by those images of seeing dogs be ripped apart and be used for food. But here, dogs are clubbed to death because they're not aggressive enough to tear apart a fox, which is essentially just like a dog.
I know.
So it's like you're using like one dog to go and kill another dog in a gross, horrendous, like manner, horrific, death. And then if the dog isn't aggressive enough, you beat that to death too. It's like, how could normal people not be opposed to this? And I think the reason they're not is because they don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing how much denial they go through. Like when that video was exposed, you clearly see a man going in a bin, or it's like a trash bin or something, and he pulls out a baby fox, and the fox is clearly still alive, and then he goes into this shed, and you can hear him winding up the dogs. So and then you hear the dogs getting agitated and howling, which is what they do out on the field. They blow like a horn and start shouting at them to get them riled up, so that they become like bloodthirsty. And so they'll flat out deny that when you see that evidence in front of you. And as well as that, they will ensure you that they absolutely love their dogs. That that there's a special relationship between them and the huntsman. When in reality, they do not care. Like there's a video on my channel where they're calling the dogs to come to them, and they keep calling them. And the only way that like half of the hounds can get to them is over a barbed wire fence. And I film them jumping over, getting stuck on the fence. And it's just like one slip on their paw and they would bleed to death. And I don't know how you could care for an animal and not be concerned about, helping them out. And there's also a video, a picture circling right now of this huntsman. He's like grabbing two
I've seen
of the dogs by the scruff of the neck. Yeah.
He's literally got them in the air. Their legs are completely off the ground.
Which you can do with like a cat or something, because that's how their mums carry them, and they've got plenty of like extra skin there. So I wouldn't be so bothered if it were a cat, because that's kind of like a natural behavior. But with a dog, I don't think you can do that without causing them quite a bit of pain.
Well, they definitely look like they're in pain. Like
yeah,
the faces of the dogs definitely look like they're in pain, and they're, at the very least, they're in discomfort. There's also been recent news articles where several dogs have gotten hit by cars, because when these hunts are going across like public roadways, the dogs are obviously in kind of a state of frenzy. So they're probably not exactly like looking around to make sure no cars are coming. They're just kind of homed in and chasing the poor fox. And several of them have been like hit, struck by cars, broken legs. The dogs probably have to get put down. I've seen videos where the huntsmen kind of come in their SUVs. They just literally grab the dog rough, throw it in the car, and they're speeding off. Crazy stuff. I mean, there was an insane news thing that I saw. It was like right before Christmas. There was a like Santa like train or something that like you could bring your kids on or whatever. So parents would go with their kids on this like little Santa Express or whatever the heck it was. So like it was like this little children's train thing, and several dogs got struck by the train again, because the huntsmen were going across the tracks, and the conductor couldn't stop the train in time. And so at least I think one of the dogs died, and some of the other ones like sustained serious injuries, and the kids were obviously like horrified,
traumatized.
So there was an article that like these traumatized kids like got to witness the Santa train like killing dogs. It's like, how does this not become like page one on every single like news platform? Like, end this nonsense. Like this should not be happening. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, yeah, I saw as well. There was a picture circling of a hound that got run over, and there was a picture of them run over, and you could see their leg had snapped in half, and it just absolutely horrible. And again, I have a video footage on my channel of hounds running in the road, and they don't have control over them. They have none. And obviously, if they're on as you said, if they're in a frenzy, they can't. They're not looking. Dogs don't have road sense, and why would they?
Right.
So it's just not responsible. And if someone who just had dogs did the exact same thing, the rules for them would be very different. And I think that's why it doesn't make page one news, because higher ups seem to have a lot of friends in important places, you know, like editors, chiefs, and I bet you there's something that, you know, they slip some money or they slip some status in there somewhere, and it doesn't get talked about for that reason, because it would be something that people would be absolutely outraged by. So I don't know why. I really don't.
And Ellie, you have a dog, right? Or you have at least one dog, right?
Yeah, my parents have three. We have three.
Dogs. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know I've seen at least one of your dogs in videos, but when you go out to just walk your dog, like where you live, are there ordinances that you have to have it on a leash? Like here in Hungary, we do. Like I can't bring my dog and let it go off the leash.
So if you're down a public footpath, you can. So if you're like in a field or anything like that,
okay,
but if you're going down a street or anything, you do have to have them on the lead, especially in city centres. So basically, the more urban the area, the more that's enforced. But especially with quote unquote dangerous dogs, and the dogs are staffies. So, but I can imagine just letting them run off. Like, I have them off the lead when I walk them, but they have to be near me because I need to see other animals. Like I need to see if there's other dogs coming. I just couldn't imagine the negligence, because the consequences of them being hurt. And I think that's what it is when their hounds are harmed. When something happens, maybe they break a leg or something, I reckon they just bludgeon them to death. They just kill them.
I'm fairly certain that is what happens, because if they're allowed to basically kill puppies because they're not aggressive enough, I'm sure there's no qualms about killing a dog that's past its prime or got injured or broke its neck or whatever. Like
they do the same with horses, and some of these horse riders are horse racers, and that's the same thing that happens with a horse when they break their leg.
Yeah, that's it.
They're shot behind a sheet. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's just so much. It surprises me as well. I don't understand how people can't realize that if someone's making a sport out of killing one animal, why are they going to care about the other two animals they're using? Like, they're not going to care, and they don't form a bond with the hounds anyway, because they want them to kind of stay quite bloodthirsty and do their own thing, almost kind of like wild pack sort of mentality, that they want to invest in them so that they, you know, will work together to get the fox. So I don't know how it just doesn't register with people that they're bloodthirsty people. They're looking to harm animals, and they harm more animals in the process of doing so. I don't know. We really need to close up the loopholes, but I'm imagining a lot of Parliament has ties to these huntsmen, so I don't think anyone wants to stick their neck out. That's the thing. And those who don't have enough power to get in and change it. So I don't know when it will stop. But I'm imagining I'm going to give it like 5 years before it's banned, like flat out banned to the point where they get convicted. Because they hardly get convicted, but I think a lady actually, I don't know if it's gone through, but she was facing jail. I don't know if you've seen this story, but she was facing jail because she whipped a sab.
I did see this, but then
about
she died
20 times. Oh, she died. Yes, she did, didn't she? She passed away.
Yep.
Yeah, so she didn't actually get convicted. I don't know if she would have.
She died while hunting.
Did she? Oh, was that? Yeah.
I covered this in one of my news live streams.
How was that then? Because I can't remember the story.
I'm not certain, but like I just remember she died, and it was like a crazy story. I think it was like a riding accident. She either fell off the horse, or the horse fell on her, or something. It had something to do with the riding. But she was in the middle of a hunt.
Oh my god!
And they were gonna actually like prosecute her because of the video footage. Like we said, like one of the body cams or something from one of the sabs, it like very clearly showed her face, and she was just like hitting this poor person over the head with their like whip or whatever, like the little horse baton whip thing, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I do like, obviously it's not good when anyone passes away, but if someone has it in them to repeatedly assault someone, it just shows a very nasty streak. And I just like, I obviously like, it's not good that that's happened. like just seeing someone just pass away in an accident. And I'm sure that it was fuel for both sides to kind of go at each other, you know, because I could imagine it would be like on one side karma, on the other side, oh, the vegans think they're so loving to beings, but they're heartless, you know, the typical. But it would have been nice to have her prosecuted and punished rather than just, you know, just be killed off, because
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, she's still done that, and she never got punished for that, like directly. That's the thing. It's very dangerous. It's dangerous. It's, you know, when you're running around on fields that aren't, you know, they're not very flat. They're not, horses don't really like it as well a lot of the time. And horses, they don't ultimately most of the time like to be ridden, so they act out, and you've got all the roads and everything. You've got the hounds running about. It's chaos, absolute chaos. It's not safe, and for any party, and it should just be banned on the grounds of that alone. And not only that as well. So the badgers in the UK, and this is why the there's hunt sabs against the badger cull, but the badgers get blamed for bovine tuberculosis, the spread, because they go from their set and leave their set, and they travel quite a bit, and they can contract bovine TB and then give it to cattle. But the argument on the other side, and this is what SABs argue, is one, that, you know, farmers should be, you know, quarantining their land well enough. They should be, you know, building fences, making sure that badgers can't get in. And as well as that, though horses, I believe, they can't contract bovine TB, I believe dogs can. So if you've got dogs running around all these fields, you know, where there's animals, what's the difference between them running about and badgers running about? I'm almost completely certain that dogs can contract bovine TB and spread it to animals. If you've got them running around, running around the countryside, you know, they go for miles. Like, trying to catch up with them is ridiculous. So they're covering a lot of ground. I don't know why we scapegoat one animal, but then allow one to just run about. Just and they're not living the same life, you know, a dog in your house is living. Well, we jab our dogs all the time. They are, for the most part, indoors. They live a very coddled life, dogs. But the hounds, you know, they're constantly grouped together, you know, in, you know, groups of like 20, 30, you know, it can be a ridiculous amount. They keep them in kennels, so they're constantly outside. I don't think they ever go indoors. Oh, you can call kennels indoors if you want to, but I don't know if you've been in a kennel. They're not very warm, you know. They're covering a lot of mileage. So there surely should be more regulations on allowing them to be out and about, just flocking around.
But I actually have covered the bovine TB thing quite a bit on some of my news streams, and there's a lot of kind of information that shows that there's no signs to support the culling of the badgers in fighting that outbreak. It's been shown to be completely, like, it's just irrelevant. And the money could be far better spent on basically like inoculating the cattle. So I think there's like some way that you can, inoculating the badgers. Sorry, you can actually inoculate them so that they won't be able to get it. And then there have been groups that have said, like, look, the government should be spending money instead of trying to kill them. They should just be spending money on trying to immunize them or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it came to about, they calculated how much it was to kill per badger. And I think it was either £1,000 or £3,000 every single badger that's been killed. That's how much it costs. I think it cost the government that because obviously you have the police out. The police are always out when the badger cull season's about, because obviously you have people, like you have farmers out with guns and you have SABs out following. So I understand why they've got to be around. And you have police at these. I don't know how much the hunts cost, but because you have the police always at a hunt. But yeah,
I'm sure it's a huge cost to the public, and that's another thing. It's like why would the average person want to subsidize this with like their tax money to basically pay for something that just the rich and well-to-do can go and enjoy at the expense of everyone else. I mean, it's crazy.
It is. It's absolutely ridiculous. And
did you see the news about the farmer who got charged because he was purposely injecting his cow, some cows with
my dad
something
told me about that
faked the TB so that he could get like a government payout from that?
Yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah, no, it was like he was injecting them with mulch or something.
It was like, something that mimicked the symptoms of the TB so that he could like basically call the animal and get the money like for it.
Yeah, I didn't read it because my dad told me about it, but he was like, that's absolutely disgusting. And that's what's interesting as well. When these things make the papers, it only helps vegans because then people look at that and think, farmers are supposed to care about their animals. And then they start making this kind of connection that actually, no, they care about money. Because at the end of the day,
and he said that he got the idea from other farmers. So clearly there's other people doing the same thing. And if that's the case, then I also wonder how many of these stats that are getting reported are even true.
And I wonder how many of them are actually doing that so then they can kill the badgers. Because when you go out to these hunts, what you find is the farmers, they go to the pub together, and they have a couple of drinks before they go. So it's almost like after a hard day's work at the farm, exploiting animals, they get together, have some fun, and exploit more animals. So it's almost like their wind down. It's their sport. It's part of the countryside life. And it's a lot of it is gone away with because it's tucked away. Like especially like most of the people who would be disgusted by this are urbanized. They're out in the cities. You're not going to see this. There's no you wouldn't, but yeah,
that's shocking too. That I mean that they're allowed to be combining alcohol and drinking with the firearms discharging. I'm pretty sure, like in the U.S. at least, there's probably some kind of ordinances against that. I don't know but I mean I've taken a hunting course, like a safety course. And I'm pretty sure back when I did that was maybe like 20 years ago. That was definitely a big no-no. Like there's no way that's like, at the very least, it's discouraged. I mean, I don't know what the actual laws say, but that is certainly not considered safe.
I don't think it's allowed, probably. But the thing is, that they're at the pub. I don't know why they haven't. I mean, it would probably be seen as stalking or something. But the way it seems to be is that the Sabs know what pubs not to go in, because you kind of have pro hunter pubs, and if they know a Sab, they won't let them in. Like there was
actually someone who put up a sign. There was a big brouhaha. I saw that
because of Boxing Day. Yeah, because Boxing Day is the big day for the hunt. Yeah, it's just terrible.
So
I just think it's part of countryside life, and it's the same in America. The kind of what I see in my head, I'm thinking Texas, I'm thinking rodeo, I'm thinking, they have the cows and then they have the horses and they go out hunting, deer. So there's all these different animals they have a different role for. They assign these fates to all these different animals. And it just comes from a place of self-entitlement that I can do what I want with these animals. Yeah. I'm not sure quite why. Maybe it's just perpetuated in the society and in different areas. But also I think it's a problem of poverty as well. Like if you haven't got much, like a countryside, because I'm not from a countryside, but I lived in one for 6 years. Okay. And
that's a long time.
There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. Like it's easier in this area to buy drugs than it is to get a job. So you can't get a job. There's nothing going on. So I can see why people then, start fishing, they start hunting. There's hair coursing going on around here. That's another thing that the Sabs go against. So I see why people then start making a sport out of abusing animals, because we ultimately see them as inferior. I'm not sure why rich people, when they've got so much money and could just be you go out on a spa day. Like what? Just do something.
I think honestly, it's a sick, twisted thing of like needing this like feeling of authority and power, and whereas before they could probably do it to people directly, now it's like you've taken our slaves. I'm the next best thing, you know, like
when you look at traditions, they're very dominant seeking.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. I'm sure that's a lot of it. I read an article. This was actually from a few years back. I'm going to put a bunch of links like in the description for people if they want to kind of read through some of the stuff. But I read an article that was written by somebody who was a pro hunter, you know, a pro fox hunting guy. And he's just extolling the virtues of like how much fun it is and all this kind of stuff. And it's insane because it's like the person's being dead serious. They're like literally saying how great it is and how fun it is and that there's nothing quite like it and the adrenaline rush and all this kind of crazy stuff. And even just reading through his own kind of like opinion piece, like you get to this point where he's talking about the horses. He's like, yeah, you know, like there's kind of like a maximum safe speed that you can ride. But then when the hounds are going crazy, you just kind of throw caution to the wind and you just go like crazy. And he's saying it as if it was like a great thing. It's like, no, you're endangering the horse and you're endangering yourself. And he's literally admitting to this, like it's a pro hunting person. Like, and if you just read through it, any sensible person would read it and be like, wow, this guy's like really off his rocker. And like, he's just not getting that, like, yeah, he's literally endangering even himself. And hunters endanger other people all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've covered several stories just in the past few weeks where, you know, there was a guy who shot a deer that fell off a cliff and landed on him. So it's like, talk about karma. God. The guy was like severely injured and hospitalized. There was another one where somebody in France got shot and killed. He was mountain biking and he was inadvertently shot by a hunter. There was just
in
recently,
Italy as well, for the third time someone's been shot and killed because they were mistaken for an animal. That's
insane. And there's the Italian vet who fell off a 100-foot cliff and died just recently. He was a big game trophy hunter as well. Again, talk about karma if you want to believe in that kind of a thing. You know, people were upset because he had posted pictures of him like shooting lions and I don't know, other big cats and stuff. And then he was home in Italy and he was out shooting birds for Christmas and he fell off a cliff and just died.
Oh my God. What is your stance on that? Because I think we have like similar principles when it comes to advocating for veganism. It'd be interesting to know like how you feel personally opposed to how you exert the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I really do actually believe in karma, but I don't know if I would call it that, but like I have these discussions a lot with like family and friends that like if something bad happens kind of in our life, like in my immediate family's life, you know, I'm of the kind of mindset that like I don't like to wish bad upon somebody else, even if they've like wronged me. And I just sort of have this idea that like somehow through whatever, the cosmos, karma, whatever you want to call it, but I truly believe that we get back kind of what we put in. So it's like if somebody really screwed me over, like I don't know, like it's not up to me to like screw them back. Like I think they'll get theirs kind of through whatever justice happens. Like I've had a bad experience before here in Hungary. Like we got into a car accident. And this crazy lady like was passing illegally in a turn with a no pass like, you know, thing. She was just completely doing an illegal pass. And she came into us like pretty much almost head on. If I hadn't pulled over to the side of the road as much, like it would have just been a head on collision. She had a car that was like much bigger than ours. It was like a big kind of like one of those box truck, you know, kind of things. And our car got flipped over. We ended up in the ditch and all this kind of stuff. And she got off scot-free. They basically just faked a technical issue as being the fault when it clearly wasn't. And and a lot of people said like, oh, you know, it's like it sucks, like, you know, that she got away with it and whatever. And I said, you know, okay, who knows? Like she might die of throat cancer or something. Like I don't know, and I'm not wishing that on her. You know, I really am not. But I'm just saying, like, you literally don't know what kind of miserable life she might have later. I don't know, and like I don't wish it upon anybody. So like when these people like get something like this, like these hunters, like I mean I'm kind of sad because it's like it's still a tragedy, you know, to see somebody, you know, suffer and die. And I certainly don't take joy in it. But like at the same time, my view is that like, yeah, like you're kind of getting back what you've put in, you know, like you've dished out death and pain and suffering, and now you're getting it back. Like
that's the thing. Yeah, for me, I don't believe in karma per se, but karma is legitimate in my mind in a sense, because it's kind of cause and effect. So if you're doing these dangerous things that harm others, it's likely you're going to get harmed as well. And if you're someone who, like in that example, that woman, there was obviously something deeply wrong in her psyche, or she's been obviously wronged in her life, surely. And if you then kind of you put out that negative energy, it will come back in a sense, because as you say, you reap what you sow. So I think karma, I don't believe in it in a kind of a spiritual sense, but I do believe that it's part of cause and effect. And, if you're doing these things that are dangerous, if you're doing these things that make people dislike you, I think a lot of the time as well, it's very self-hating to need that dominance over another animal. It shows a lot of the time an insecurity, and it's something missing. It's almost like they might be trying in many cases to fill a void with the kind of rush, because anytime you're looking for a rush, it can sometimes mean that you are someone who's deeply empty and you need that. And so I don't it's hard though, because obviously I don't see the moral difference between killing an animal when you don't need to do it. All right, when it's not, when there's an option for you to say no, if you do it, I don't see much of a difference between doing that to them and a human being, because what I value is the sentience and the ability to suffer and experience well-being. So if they're doing that to an animal, just like that, if they did it to a person, I struggle to feel that bad. And it's the same, like, people get angry if you're like, oh well, it's karma, but a lot of the time they're the same people who will say the very same thing to trophy hunters. Yep. Like Piers Morgan. Yep. He's talked about
classic
how
cognitive
vegans
dissonance.
He says how, and he, a lot of the time, though people dislike him, he does represent the common consensus that a lot of people, and a lot of people agree with him with the trophy hunting stuff, but he'll call vegans terrorists for saying the exact same thing to him when it comes to another animal, but he can't name the difference. He said that himself. There's actually Joey Carstrong just come out with a video, and he says, well, I'm trying to work out the difference between a pig and a dog, and honestly, I don't know. He says that, but he will then make an article calling for hunter hunting, to put their heads on a mantelpiece on a wall. So it's like, well, even if I did, this is why I empathize with vegans who say this, because even if I said that, people would say the exact same thing. It's just there's this line that people draw without thinking. So
but if a vegan said that, I think it would also paint veganism in a bad light. So if vegans said like, oh, hunters should be hunted and whatever, literally the same words, but if it comes from a vegan, I think it would actually be deemed as being inappropriate, and exactly. I think people would be upset.
Do you want to address the chat, by the way? People have been
yes. I actually see one from Generally. Hi everybody. So what Generally is referring to here is there was a video that I put out in preparation for this. I talked about my own experience, and back in my youth, I'll just sum up the kind of story just for Ellie, for your convenience, and for anybody who didn't see that video. Back in high school, I actually joined the rifle team from the recommendation of a friend. And I became a pretty good shot, and I got kind of like into guns and like firearms, and I was like a big kind of like pro gun kind of person. And my views on that have changed significantly. But anyway, so back then I was like really into that idea, and I was also very much into kind of like believing that eating animals was absolutely necessary. So I was just 100% convinced that you needed it for health. It wasn't even a question in my mind. And and so I also was trying to get into hunting at that time. So this was like right after high school and like going into college. And like I said, I took the hunting certification course. Like I did the safety course. I got a hunting license, and I had a hunting rifle. And on my parents' property, it was actually legal because of the size, like that we could actually, like I used to do target practice there in the backyard. And squirrels were always a nuisance because my mom had a garden, and they would often come and kind of like pilfer all the stuff. And several people I knew would actually go hunting for squirrels. They would like cook them into soups and stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll shoot a squirrel and I'll eat it. And it's really something I'm like kind of to this day like haunted by a little bit. And I shot a squirrel. I mean, that's the short and skinny of the story. And I was a good shot, so it's not like I, didn't know how to handle the firearm. Like I said, I went through all the safety stuff. And I mean, I was on my rifle team in high school. We were like second best in the state. Like I was on the varsity team. Like I was good. And but for whatever reason, I didn't kill the squirrel. And he was clearly wounded, and I could see blood and stuff. And he ended up kind of running off into the woods. And he ended up going into like this like tree stump that like I couldn't get him out of there. And basically I just ended up like, being like, well, what the hell, what am I going to do? And I just left the squirrel there. So I never knew like what actually happened to the squirrel. Like if he just died, or if he kind of like came out of there after some point and maybe he lived, I don't know. But I mean, my kind of turning point there was that I realized like, okay, even though I'm a good shot, even though I had like all the safety and all the kind of like prep and training, like I wasn't able to get a clean kill. And like I say, this was at the time when I was very, very much not a vegan, and in fact, very much anti-vegan. And even then I kind of realized like, wow, like hunting is not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, I was going to eat the squirrel. I wasn't shooting it for fun. I wasn't doing it for like kicks. It was like, I literally thought I was going to, kill it and eat it. And at that point, I mean, I really had a turning point. I pretty much just, like I never shot at another living thing after that. And I even pretty much lost all of my interest in like firearms. And I don't even think I did target practice after that. Like it was just like, I had a really strong kind of reaction to it. And I realized that like it was really bad and wrong what I did. And even then I still wasn't opposed to hunting for food, but I just didn't want to do it. And I think that's one thing that goes to kind of something you just said, Ellie, which is that I think in a lot of people's minds, there is a difference between trophy hunting and hunting for food, especially for somebody like me back then. I believed that you needed the animals for food. And if you actually view it that way, then I can kind of still understand that somebody would go and shoot a deer and they would eat it. I do not think, and even then I didn't think that it would have been appropriate to shoot a deer just so you could like mount its head on your wall and throw away the carcass. Like I would never have been into that. I never understood sport fishing. I was like really big into fishing as a kid. I loved going fishing. I would go with my grandpa and my brother and stuff. And I never once like caught a fish just for fun. Like we caught the fish, we killed it, and we ate it. And I mean, it's terrible now, like thinking back on that, but I still think there's a difference. Like even as a kid, like if I was watching like a fishing show or something like on TV, like on ESPN or whatever in the US, like they would have these like outdoor kind of shows. I never understood the idea of like going and just like catching a fish and just kind of like taking it out of the water and taking a picture and then being like, oh, there you go, put him back in the water. Like I was like, what are you doing? You're just like torturing the fish for no reason. Like it's just for your own ego. Like look at this big one that I caught. And it's like, if I was like, I caught a big one, it's like, oh, that's good. I can go home now because I don't need to catch anymore. Like it was like we were kind of poor actually growing up, but like, I mean, we didn't need to go fishing, but it was definitely like, it was a food source. Like we literally supplemented what we were eating with what we caught. And I think there is a difference. I mean, I know it's like as a vegan, it's kind of easy to just say, well, no, it's just all unnecessary. But if somebody doesn't believe it to be unnecessary, I still think there is a difference between eating it and just doing it because you just want to shoot a lion so that you can have a trophy in your room. Like
I bear that in mind during my outreach because there's such a large proportion of people who oppose trophy hunting, but do not oppose, eating animals. And it does demonstrate that a lot of people still believe that there is a need to consume animals. So if you show them, no, actually, that's not the case. we've been told otherwise, then they can then make that connection themselves, because then they're like, well, it's the same, because
it is the same, yeah. Once you realize it, yeah,
it's the same for vegans as well. If there is a need to do something in our minds, we will do that. You know, we will take that sacrifice, we'll call it. We will, if we absolutely have to, i.e., medication that you know is tested on animals. You know an animal suffered and died for the medication, but if you don't take the medication, we know that we might die, you know, in those cases. So I can see, you know, why they would make that distinction, and I think it's important to bear that in mind and make sure that they understand that that's absolutely not the case. And I agree with generally, she said hunters should be educated, and I absolutely agree with that, because the person who trained me to be a sab, she knew everything about sabbing and hunting, because she was a hunter. She was a hunter for, I think, 8 years, and then she realized that it was wrong. So she knew she knows hunting like the back of her hand. She knows all the people, all the connections, and it's through her doing it. And she educated herself and realized actually this is the wrong thing to do. So generally is absolutely right. I think the tension, you know, it causes a kind of enemy status, and then each group feels like they almost need to keep going because we're stubborn. We are stubborn by nature. We don't want to give up ground, and it's almost as if, you know, we like taking our frustration out on others all the time. We do it all the time, and you know, the hunters are no exception to that rule. And I also want to say, I found the hunt sab who died. Oh, okay. And this was in 1994. And you're going to laugh because you're going to see journalist bias put into this. So he was crushed by a horse box with the Cambridgeshire foxhounds. So this was in my area that I'm in. As he attempted to decouple it from a vehicle during a hunt near St Neots, Thomas, here we go, who attended a home for children with behavioural difficulties. Why have they added that bit in, please?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with anything.
Nothing. Yep. No, you've just got it. Was with the saboteurs from Milton Keynes, who are known in field sports circles for being particularly dedicated and disruptive. So this was before the ban came in, you know, a few years before I was born. I'll give you the link. But the kind of journalism towards, it's interesting seeing this, the journalism towards hunting has changed drastically. And I don't know if it's because, you know why I think it is? Because it's, you know, conservatives have very traditional values and they like tradition, and a lot of the time, I'm betting maybe 90% of the time at least, the people who are doing the hunting are conservatives. And I think now a lot of the journalists are more left-leaning. So that might be why. I don't know if it's because our relationship with animals has improved. I think it's politically driven a lot as well.
So even you don't think it's a genuine change of heart? It's more just that it's like an agenda that's being pushed somehow?
Yeah, I think it's more politically driven for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Is anyone else saying anything? We've got actually quite a few comments to catch up on. Are there any that are standing out to you?
Let's see.
What's the first one? Oh, Vohan said I look nice in yellow. Thank you, Vohan. I was feeling like a flower today, so you
Vohan says we should vote the Tories out of the House. So are for all the US people, are the Tories the conservatives and Labour is kind of the more for the people?
Yeah, well, Labour's kind of, when you look at it on a political compass, it's still kind of, it's not that far left. Yeah, it's nearly. It's like center. But with Jeremy Corbyn, he's very left. So, you know, it always kind of changes relative to who the leader is. But yeah, it's the Conservatives are the Tories, and a lot of the Sabs as well are left-leaning. Because a lot of them are anarchists, a lot of them are left-leaning. Because Vohan mentioned a comment, he was like, "Well, it's a good thing they're not Antifa," but a lot of them are. I'm not saying they all are, or the majority are, but there seems to be a more left-leaning community, in the sab community, because if they find out that people are like racist or something, if they deem them racist, then there is tension there. So there's a lot of politics in this as well, and I think unfortunately, especially when it comes to the media, that's what drives it before the animals value.
I do have an article that I'll link in the end too, but it says that labor to consider prison sentences for people taking part in illegal fox hunts. So they have a video of Jeremy Corbyn calling it a barbaric tradition, and I forget the exact wording used.
He's also vegetarian, so that might yeah. He used to go vegan, but people moan at him all the time. But
I think that's changing slowly but surely, because I think like there's a lot of people who are vegetarian for ethical reasons, and they even probably nowadays I think are more and more getting the information that vegetarianism doesn't do enough to kind of mitigate the suffering of the animals. But I think the excuse in the past was always like, well, it's too difficult and it's hard to find the fully vegan product and whatever. But now that's just changing so much that like it's like there's no real excuse. Like if you can go into Pizza Hut and get a vegan pizza, like what's your problem? Like, well, why can't you be a vegan?
Yeah. And it's really easy in the UK. Really easy. Like it annoys me so much when I see, oh, you're privileged and everything. Because when I was learning how to budget at uni, that's when I turned vegan. I literally didn't know about these products. There were a lot less, and I I managed to live off £5 in a week. Like just because your base things are your beans, your noodles, everything are dirt cheap. Like it's just.
I found that I've actually saved a lot of money. I mean, I used to spend a lot more money when I was buying a lot of animal products. I was buying a lot of milk. That was really expensive. Buying really expensive meat. That was really expensive. And I mean, compare like beans and lentils and even like tofu. Tofu's cheaper than cheese, like where I am here in Hungary. And this is not a vegan mecca by any means. Like, no. But even here, it's like it's really easy, and I mean, it's just getting better and better. It's like I did a video a couple weeks back where we went into our Auchan, which is kind of like it's like a Tesco kind of supermarket, like a huge like supermarket, and and they had a full like like cooler thing just full of vegan products. It was just anything and everything you could imagine. It was just like the whole thing was just all vegan. So they had obviously like tofu and vegan cheese and whatever, but they had all the mock meats, the seitan, the sausages, the whatever, the cold cut things, and everything was vegan in that whole container. And I mean, that was just like shocking. Like you would not have seen that 10 years ago.
No, it's like the same here. So, so a lot of the time you see like, what about, mums who need to feed their kids? And then you look at like the free from section. So right now there's an offer, and usually it's like 3 for £5, but right now it's like 3 for £4, where you can get like a variation of things. Like for example, 30 mini sausage rolls in a packet, 16 chicken nuggets, and like 300 grams of mince meat and stuff like that. And it's just like if you don't have money, you know what it's like to have to shop smart.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like a lot of the time the people who are telling you to think about the poor people are rich because they don't know how to shop cheap. They don't know the prices of cheap products because they don't need to think about it. But like and that's the thing, when someone comes at me with that, I automatically know the price of everything because I'm very conscious of it. Like it's like you don't have to count your pennies, do you?
Yeah, I think it's an excuse. I mean, honestly, like that's what I think is it's just a convenient excuse. It's like the people who are the most vocal about saying that veganism is for privileged, whatever, are people who are privileged. So it's like, okay, but what's your excuse? You are privileged, so why can't you do it? Even if, let's just assume that it's true. Let's just say it is a privileged thing. Then why don't you do it?
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, no.
Why don't you do it for the people who are underprivileged?
Yeah,
you do it for them if you care so much. But people seem to just use other people as almost like they turn them into shields. It's very Absolutely. Snaky, and they pretend that they're all for them. Yeah. When they're not.
I'm so concerned about the Mexicans picking the crops.
Yeah, and then they're not all there for it, because then when hundreds of poor vegans come along and go, actually, I'm I'm really poor, and I'm doing it fine. Oh, I have 3 kids and I'm doing it fine. You know, on benefits, doing it fine. They're not a word.
Yep.
No, oh, well done. Like, how did you do that? Oh,
that's the end of the thread.
Yeah,
no more replies.
No.
Yep. There's a comment that I wanted to reply to here. Generally said the hounds are part of the propaganda. If we ban fox hunting, what will happen to the dogs? And that it's the same kind of justification that they use for talking about what happens to the cows or whatever, that kind of thing. And I think that's an interesting thing that like. It's very clear that they don't really truly care about the dogs. I mean, people will still have dogs. The dogs aren't going to go anywhere. It's just that these dogs are bred into existence in surplus numbers. Again, it's just like in the animal agriculture industry. The reason why they're there is because they're bred with high numbers. Naturally, they would not be reproducing at these rates. Also, if we didn't kill off all the predators we have in the wild, again, people who advocate like we have to shoot the deer, for example, or the rabbits or whatever. If you just left kind of, all the animals alone, the natural balance would kind of just happen in nature, and you wouldn't need to be worried about shooting the deer. Or in this case, like, the hunting dogs are not going to be like running amok and proliferating all across the globe. Like, it's a ridiculous excuse. Like,
I think it's the selfishness of sentiment. Like, people, they like things to stay the same. Like, I think people like, especially in the UK, so you're driving down countryside or you're driving down a main road and you can see all these fields and they've got sheep in them. They've got cows in them. They've got all the, and they can't imagine a world where they're not in those fields. And it's just really annoying because it's like, well, if we, I think it's called rewilding. If we rewilded the fields, you would see more wildlife. So you would see animals. I think people are, it's weird that we're so, because when you look at our evolution and how far we've traveled and how much we've changed, you think we'd be more adaptable, but people are very scared of change. They're very scared of the idea of someone not being there anymore, even if they are being exploited, tortured, and killed, and forced into existence. It's very very obscure. I don't know. We got Bev in here finally, late as always. she said, but yeah. Oh, there's someone I've never seen before. Fantastic Drago. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
But yeah, Jenny says, so true, Ellie. Rose-colored glasses of the past. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a very sentimental person, actually. I hate nostalgia. I've actually got a tattoo here that is about my hatred for nostalgia. It's just, so maybe I'm just biased in the sense that I just don't really like sentimentality maybe as much as another person does. But I think even if I did, I'd be able to understand that the harm being done is worse than, what my personal feeling would be, being fuzzy, Like, I love
it's a combination of them not really knowing. Most people have no clue. I mean, I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, because you see them for a split second and they're really cute, and you go about your day. You don't really have to think about what's going to happen after they've finished eating grass, and because you don't have to see the naughty stuff. But yeah, I think it's simply because we don't talk about it. That's what it is. That is all it boils down to. Because now we're talking about it. It's all over the blooming shop, like in the UK. Now, talk shows can't shut up about it. In BBC Wales has just come out with a documentary, and it follows. It's called Dirty Vegan or something, and he's showing. He's like a bodybuilder or something. He's showing a positive light. The veganuary is very commercial. People can't stop talking about it. So I think the more people talk about it, the more people will succumb to it. Because at the end of the day, cognitive dissonance is only so strong. And cognitive dissonance a lot of the time comes from not talking about it, not thinking about it. But most people, they don't want to harm when there's an option not to. Most people. And most people kind of dictate what happens in a society and what's acceptable. So as soon as they connect the dots, I'm afraid our carnivore friends will be very upset.
Yeah, I pray to see that day. I mean, I hope that we'll still be around when we look back on the likes of Piers Morgan and be like, wow, like that guy was just so out of touch. Like he'll be kind of like that uncool uncle who's like still a racist now. Or, you know, like he'll just be like, man, you know, like he's at a dinner party or something and they crack a joke and you're just sort of like, dude, it's not like, you know, 100 years ago anymore.
Please
like,
don't say that out loud. I've got friends.
Like I really think like it'll be like that. I mean, I think it's a lot like what you said. Like if you know that it's there and you see that from a young enough age, and now I think there's so many young people into veganism and so many people who are being raised vegan from birth that those people can't help but kind of, you know, be advocates. Like they're they're going to be an example for other people to follow. I see it in my own kids. I mean, they're really, you know, still pretty young. And like my son's in preschool, he's like 6. And there have been actually some kind of like pretty uncomfortable kind of situations for him, the poor little guy. Like he'll be in school and like he told all his like classmates that like they're going to die if they eat eggs. And I had to have like a couple words with like the teacher and kind of explain the situation and kind of explain to him the situation a little bit more. And it's kind of hard to like, he's just like trying to do kind of like a nice thing to tell people about the health risks of eating animal products. Cause I've told him and I explained it to him. And it's like this really hard kind of situation for him. Cause like as a 6-year-old, you can't really explain that to that level. And you don't know like how to talk. Like, I mean, I explained it to him in a way that he understands it, but like what that went across to, you know, the other kids was just like, yeah, like don't eat eggs, you're going to die. And it's like, okay, like I have to be careful. I have to kind of, you know, do a better job of explaining it to him in a way. And it's hard to tell like a kid something that like, look, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this information. They don't know so they're not doing anything wrong because they don't know any better. And then as he becomes more kind of mature, I'm sure he'll be able to explain it in a better way. And you know, I'm sure he's going to turn people vegan. Like, I'm sure of it.
He probably did.
And I'm absolutely convinced that, like, if you have somebody from a young age as a kind of role model, you know, like, if you know, like he's going to have friends in school, right? And, like, if you see, like, you know, when you're in high school and, like, he's just as able-bodied as anybody else, this myth of like, oh, where do you get your protein from, or you're a scrawny little vegan, and you're like, but I know that guy, and like I went to high school with him, like he's strong as hell, he can like run this, like, you know, a fast 5K, or, you know, whatever the case might be, and then it'll be like, well, that doesn't make any sense, so people won't believe that stuff anymore. And I just think things are going to change. Like we just have to reach some kind of critical mass to get to that point that there's like an actual shift. It's sort of like all the stuff you saw in the past, you know, maybe 2 decades, like in the US, especially, like, you know, gay rights, medical marijuana. I don't know. I mean, like the civil rights movement. I mean, there was like tons and tons of like people probably even into like right up until the changes were actually made that said it will never change. There were probably people in 1960 who forever would have thought that, like, you know, Black people will forever be like underneath and be subjugated. And, you know, slowly and surely things are changing. I'm not saying that stuff's solved, because we can see that it's not. I mean, there are still huge problems with racial equality, but just like that is slowly but surely kind of progressing. I think the view that we're above animals and we can just do whatever we want to them, I think that is changing too.
Yeah, there's definitely changing. And oh, there's more comments. Hang on. Oh, this fantastic Dragos from Twitter.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm always happy. And I always wonder, like, because I have a bunch of people on Twitter who follow me that I don't see in my subscriptions. So, like, I don't know if they also, like, watch the videos or not. But
yeah, I definitely do not have most of my Twitter followers on my YouTube. Otherwise, my YouTube would be popping. Oh, speaking of Twitter, though, it's funny that you say about, you know, will be an example just by existing, because you know, the whole yes to meat hashtag. Well, I made a a hashtag about it and said, how do you ethically justify it? And this guy said, I regard it the same as I regard oxygen and water. And then all these all these figures were like, well, I went vegan 18 years ago. Like, am I due an impending death? How long have I got left? Like, all these people. And it's just absolutely ridiculous how much, like, so most people will look at that and think, oh, yeah, okay, maybe that, well, that's clearly not the truth. Some people will stick their head in the sand and stay there, but they're going to stick their head in the sand with everything. So,
yeah. And I think one approach that some of these, especially like the carnivore kind of like hardcore anti-vegans people, so not even just normal kind of omnivore kind of carnist people, but the hardcore anti-vegan people will actually literally say that that's just a lie. They'll literally just like dismiss the whole claim, like, oh, that person's lying. They're secretly eating animal products. Ellie, pal, no. Those guys are eating eggs on the side. They're just, I'm gonna go to the fridge and drink milk. Like after this, what I do. I
like an 18 egg smoothie, and then I put like
and bacon and catheter, just it's crazy stuff. And Bohan pointed out that my son turned my wife and me vegan, and basically he did, because at the age of 2 he actually stopped eating meat. So for me,
really.
My son was like really one of the main things that actually made me go vegan. I was so concerned because, like I said, at that time, I was like full on thinking like he's going to be super unhealthy. I was concerned that he just wasn't eating meat. He was still eating eggs. He was still eating dairy, but he just refused to eat any kind of meat. We tried blending it. We would put it into like sauces and stuff. He would just spit it out, like or not even take it in his mouth. Like I think it was just something with the smell and the texture. Like no matter what we did, he just refused to eat meat from about the time he was 2. And,
what an activist!
Got
a cat in here now. That's brilliant. I wish I'd been the same. I really do. I regret like not being able to, because you see like young people connect the dots really quickly, and you think, oh, wow, you're a smart little bean, I wish I could have, but obviously there are, unfortunately, the default setting of being a human being in any given society means that you're participating in a lot of horrible things, so you have to walk so many different paths, and given your experiences, you're going to be far down one and 1,000 miles behind on another. So, it's unfortunately there are a lot of things that you have to overcome in order to become a better person, because the way it's laid out, it's if you just follow the crowd at the moment, you're going to be harming others on a scale of which is incomparable to what could be if you just try to avoid it. So I suppose that's why I try not to judge people for changing at 30, because you're probably focusing on other things. There were other things that you saw as big problems that you could have influenced people out of, and it's just there's a lot.
I always say it's never too late to change, but it's obviously also never too early to change. But I also just want to say too something that you just said, which is you wish you had been like that. Think of all the conditioning that you've had, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think back to all the conditioning I had. I mean, like I said, I was going fishing with my grandpa when I was probably like, I don't know, 8 years old maybe or something. I was literally catching the fish, like putting worms onto hooks. Like even that's horrible. I mean, they were squirming around. I always hated that, by the way. Like, I mean, I have vivid memories of that just being absolutely disgusting. And I felt bad for the worms. But like I did it because it was like, well, you got to catch the fish. How else are you going to catch the fish? And so it's like, I mean, think about that. That's child abuse. I'm not blaming my grandpa, so don't take it the wrong way. Like he had the same stuff done to him, so it's like he's just perpetuating what was done to him. But like, just think about that kind of sick, sadistic kind of thing that we're teaching like people. I mean, obviously we're trying to change that now, but I mean, just historically speaking, like you're teaching people at super, super young ages, and you have to literally lie to them. You have to literally lie to the kid to tell them that like, oh, the cow gives you the milk, the chickens give you the eggs, like the piggy gives you the bacon. It's like, no, they don't give you anything. You literally brutally murder and kill them. But if you ever showed that to a kid, like they would be traumatized. They would never ever eat that stuff again, you know.
Yeah.
And you think of all the conditioning that went in to making you be who you are, such that when you did find out that, like, yeah, we have to kill this animal to eat it, like that you were okay with that. Because how many times did your parents tell you, like, well, you need to do it, you know, it's you know, it's the way things are, and it's the circle of life, and you know, all this kind of BS stuff that just, it gets perpetuated because of it was what was done to them. It's like it's literally akin to kind of like child abuse and stuff. It's kind of like, I was kicked, I'm gonna kick.
Yep, it's the further hidden conditioning as well. So like from a childhood, you have a clear example in your head or image of what a bad person is, and a bad person is what a bad person does. So you know, you're around people who are lovely and they do bad things, and it's just it takes you a long time to be like, I'm good, but I do bad things. These people are good, but they do bad things. Yeah. In any aspect, it extends to the play. You know, good people do very bad things, and I think it just takes us a long time to get the big bad wolf out of our head and start realizing, no, it's more complicated than that. You've really got to take into account what it is you value, and if that, you know, consistently held would create, you know, a world that you value. And a lot of the time, people value, you know, a world of maximized well-being, minimized suffering, you know, of convenience, of you know, wholesomeness. So generally, that you kind of have that shared value. So the ultimate conclusion should be the things we're talking about, but it takes a long time. It does.
Yeah. I actually, going on what you said right there, I think it is actually one of the reasons why it's so hard to convince your parents. About like veganism. For me, it's like a constant struggle. I mean, we have so many fights, like it's just crazy. And I think it ultimately comes back to this, that like, just like you as a child view them as kind of like, you know, these kind of like, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's like, it's God. You know, they can do no wrong. Like, as your little kid, they can literally do no wrong. They do everything for you. They take care of you. And if they tell you this is how it is, you have, I mean, why would you not believe them? Why would, you know, as a little child, I mean, like as a 5-year-old, like, why would you not believe your dad telling you, like, yeah, son, this is what we got to do. We got to kill the pig.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw pig slaughter. I helped hold down geese. Like, I mean, I've killed a lot of animals in my life. It's horrible. I think back on that now, and it's like, I just, you know, I wish it could have been different. And I'm just really grateful that I can show a different way to my kids. And by doing this, though, I think literally kind of gets in the psyche of the parents, that deep down subconsciously, even though I don't say this to them, they probably feel like I'm judging them. They probably feel that I'm literally throwing it in their face, that like, you're wrong, you didn't do it as good as I'm doing it, because I'm doing it a different way. And they take offense to it quickly. They absolutely take that as a personal offense.
Yeah, no, we very much see them as gods growing up. That's why a part of me thinks the Bible was written, because when you look at a lot of adults, there's a lot of childlike tendencies they haven't been able to get rid of, or they haven't been able to like properly make peace with. Because as you're growing up, you kind of, you never really lose those childlike aspects, I don't think, but you learn to control them, or you learn, you know, like tantrums is a breakdown of emotion, and you don't know what to do with it. You know, when you're young, the responsibility is not on your shoulders. There is an answer for everything, you know, because someone is giving you the answer when you question them. And I do think that we do see them as gods, and it's then coming to terms with that, like, you know, your God has failed you.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I can 100% feel that. I mean, when I actually made the ethical connection, and I remember talking to my wife about this, like, it was like my whole world just crumbled, like, all around me. I mean, I started questioning things that like I just had taken for granted for my whole life, and I was like in my, you know, mid late 30s, and it was just like, what the hell? How did it take me 36 years or whatever it was to see this? How did it possibly take me this long to wake up? It was like literally like waking up from the Matrix or whatever. And like, just,
I know, yeah. That's why there's the whole pill thing, isn't it? That's why it's massive, because it just feels like, wow, how did I not? Because I've always been very like animal orientated. I remember as a kid complaining about deforestation. I did little articles on it. You know, I very like I was making blueprints for like wind powered energy
awesome.
and stuff like that. Yeah, I was like doing that because I was just so bothered by all of it. And there's just so much. There's so much. You know, in 5 years' time, I'll look back at me and think, oh my god, how did you not see that? Like, why were you doing that? Because there's just too many things. There's too many things to try and focus on. That's why I think a lot of us should dedicate so much time to something we find important, because there is so much and it needs tending to right now. It should have been done yesterday. So it is important. Fantastic put the Matrix.
Yep, there was that cartoon that was years ago too. I remember. I think I was probably in college when that came out. That's old, right? I mean, it's like that came out a long time ago. It was that little animated feature.
Yeah.
It was the thing, the Matrix, but it was like a long time ago.
Generally said that creates a lot of angry vegans. How does everyone not see this? What, the realizing that people around you are doing something and you don't want to do it, sort of thing? Yeah, of course it's gonna make you very angry, because you could be, because it's like,
I think it's normal. I think it's like a grieving process. You have to literally grieve for your former self and your parents and your culture and your society that brought you up and that you were a member of. And now you realize you have to be kind of away from that and you have to step away from it. It's absolutely normal. It's like part of the grieving process. It's like when you lose a loved one. I mean, I've literally got to the point where I've lost, family members in a way that like they just can't accept me being vegan. And it's insane.
Yeah, it's like, think of how annoying it is, like when you're in a room and you're like, what's that sound? And people are like, I can't hear it. But nobody can hear it. You're like, no, there's a sound in here. Like,
no, Ellie, it's my kids in the other room.
I can't hear them. I can't hear them. And you're like, how annoying that is, where you're just like, I can definitely hear something. And that's got no consequence, except maybe you're going crazy. Like, that's the consequence. That alone is annoying. But when something rests on the shoulders of another, or is the shoulders of another, in a lot of cases, it's like infuriating. That's why though I don't agree with a lot of advocacy that goes on, I understand why it happens. And
absolutely.
And the people who don't like it, i.e. to be vegans, they're going to be pre-vegan, they will also see it in the future. You see people who blame not changing on other people. You see them people become very vocal. I know quite a few people who were having a little gabble at me, and now they're on Facebook, and I'm like, whoa, chill out. I didn't teach you that. It didn't come from me, so don't you start. But yeah, it's
fantastic. Drago had an interesting comment. They said they were fortunate and unfortunate enough to grow up on a small farm, and killing and eating animals was normal and thought to be necessary. Didn't even know veganism existed until they were 15. So that's absolutely kind of, I think normal and till now. But now I think things are changing. And if you imagine, even if you were growing up in a rural area like that, imagine if there was the one kid in your classroom who was vegan and you saw them growing up. You might have gone home at the age of 7 and told your mom, like, hey, my friend in school told me I was going to die because I ate eggs. Like, maybe that would spark a conversation, like, I don't know. And I think that kind of stuff is going to just happen more and more. And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, really, it's just I was going to say something completely. It's just gone boom. Oh, seen Freely's latest video? She's left the comments on. Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
But that's the thing. it all comes with its consequences, though. Like, I'm about to drop a video that might ruffle some feathers, you know, about actually like Freely and Duran Rider and all that, and because they were diet gurus. And you're seeing now that people on YouTube who were followers of the kind of Raw Till 4, all that lifestyle, they're now leaving. And it's like they've been failed. And that's why I do want the advocacy to be tightened up. I mean, before anything, I think we need to get our facts straight. How you kind of give the message, I think, depends on the person you're talking to. Because some people like being kicked up the arse. You know, so but as long as you've got your facts straight, because I watched the Foot Soldier Duran Rider debate, and it was unfortunately what I expected. It was Duran Rider rejecting all the science, saying science isn't trustworthy, and that, well, he had the results, he was lean, he knew people who were lean, he had a nice girlfriend. It's just, he literally used his girlfriend as a kind of argument. It's just like we you know, valuing anecdote, and that's when I have a problem with it more than anything. People having a shout at people, I can't get too mad about, to be honest with you. Not anymore, because you understand, like, through encountering different people, that some people aren't gonna, you know, I could be Socratic all I want. Some people aren't gonna care. They're not. They need someone to scream at them, take responsibility for your actions. You're a horrible person. Like, some people need it. Yeah. It's interesting, but yeah.
My approach is always trying to kind of like use logic and empathy and try to see it from their way and everything. But I can definitely lose my control too, and usually the only people I do that with is family. Like with strangers or coworkers or everybody. I mean, literally anybody who's not family or not like a close person to me, I can stay calm like till the cows come home, like forever. But with family, it's like it's really hard, because it's like, I think who was it? Somebody in the comments said it. You know, generally said it, like, people who are closest to you not understanding, it's almost like in a personal affront. It's like, oh yeah, I expect more from you, like I know you, like it's like you taught me,
cool. You taught me, like, and you've said things. I know everything that you said to me, like, and I know you.
And that sucks. That's like the worst thing. It's like so hard to accept that, like, somebody that you care about, like, on a deep level, if they're just not getting it, or they're not even willing to look. Like, that's my biggest thing, is like, I'll look at anything you want. I'll read any study. I'll read any book. I'll look at any opinion. I'll read it. We can talk about it. But then please have at least the common decency and courtesy to look at the stuff I want to show you, and they won't. And it's like, that just like kills me. Like, I just...
The little part of you dies inside. The little child just like screaming out, you would expect better from me. So why can't you return the... Yeah, I don't like that lack of give and take. Because what you'd think when you grow up, that finally it's like, oh, I can learn something from you. Your turn.
No. This is something that I think is like really, really important. Like, my wife and I think this is so important. We've literally talked about writing this down for a reminder for ourselves. Like, once our kids are old enough that, like, they may start questioning some of the things we've, you know, taught them, or just the way we've you know, kind of structured our lives or whatever, to just make sure that we actually value them and appreciate that they may want to do something differently.
Something sad might happen where you'll resist in the same fashion, and then you'll catch yourself doing it and be like...
But that's why I want to write it down, so that I can remind myself that, like, hey, jerk, you said to yourself in the future, you are not going to be like your...
No, you better film like an unlisted video for me when I'm like... and it just automatically plays on your phone or something, because you can't even reject it. So, no, this is... I'm sad that Mod Vegan left the platform. I don't know if you ever watched Mod Vegan. Did you?
I've only seen a couple, so I like just barely know who she was. Okay. I saw like 1 or 2 videos.
She did very clean cut videos, and she did one about the innovation curve.
Oh, okay.
And I've always bear that in mind when it comes to this. Like, it's just gonna... I feel like we're you know, where on the
just
innovation
curve, that critical point.
and then it's just gonna go, and we're not even gonna be able to control it. Like,
what is it? It's something like, it's like 10% or something, or whatever. Like once you get to that 10%, it's like critical mass, and then it's just.
It's the same when it comes to, like, you know, making money. It's business, you know, brands, trends. You see a similar kind of curve, and then, you know, things change, and I don't know what will come when, you know, things are banned, when things change. But I think it'll be at least a little bit of a different world, at least. But yeah. My sister still says, "Can't you eat a little dairy?"
Oh God, poor Hesse. Oh man, that sucks.
You know what I find interesting, right? So people, they'll be like, "I don't see a problem with it," but then they'll go, "Oh, I only do it a little." So it's like, you clearly see a problem with it because you don't want to participate too much.
Yeah.
You know, so why is it valuable to you to say, "I only do it a bit"? Like so obviously you're fibbing. So you're fibbing to me. Is I think that's why it's really good to. I don't professionally know much about psychology, but I've looked into psychology a lot. I think it's important if you're going to talk to people to learn about it, because you can see when people are, you know, putting up the walls.
The walls, yeah,
and it's defensive. Like, I know what you're doing. I can see you doing it.
Yeah. People at work have been like that with me, where before I quit my job, I obviously like didn't ever hide being a vegan, and I'll gladly talk to anybody about it, and like especially on work trips, or like, you know, kind of like lunches or dinners or whatever, there was always kind of like it was obvious, because like I'm like struggling to find like vegan food, so I'm sitting there eating like French fries and ketchup and stuff like that, and then people will ask, and I think it's like, it was a great opportunity. Like I always enjoyed that. But some people literally did what you said, which is like, they would find out, "Oh, you're vegan. Oh, well, you know, I don't even eat that much meat," like whatever. Like it was immediately like they're trying to somehow kind of connect with you and be like, I'm almost just like you.
It's sweet. They think they're connecting with you, but they're making it way worse. So it's just like, "Oh, hello, I'm gonna dig a hole right next to you. I hope you don't mind." It's like, bless. Oh wait, Jenna Lee said, "Say, is Kalel your sister?"
Oh man, that's terrible. Poor Hesse. Said my sister is stupid a few months ago. She was asking if fish was vegan. I actually blame, you know, kind of some of the bad ex-vegans and stuff on that, because I just think like so many people just nowadays, I mean, it's just like, geez, man, it's like everybody just, it's like eggs and fish. They're like the magic cure-all. I mean, I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Like, I'm so kind of like upset by seeing like Bobby, from Bobby's perspective.
That was the one, the first time where I felt a genuine disappointment, because I really thought that he was different. But no, the mushrooms, like, the mushrooms told him.
The mushrooms told him, and he ate one egg, and he says life was great. And it's
that's like, physically, like, it's not
impossible. Yeah.
Like, he should know that the human psyche is so prone to placebo. Like, he talks about these things, and it's just like, were you lying that entire time? Then were you trying to feel good? It's just like, it's a very, and that's the thing. Like, while being hit so hard by a placebo, we're also really good at lying to ourselves. Like, we can lie to ourselves better than we can lie to anybody else.
That's true.
Yeah,
yep,
and I thought, this is why I was surprised, because I thought he could be honest about these things to himself. He knows that these things are bad. He knows that surely that's not what can happen. He's talked about these things before, and now he's lying to himself. And it's just like, you fake woke. You're fake woke.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's hard.
I think as well, the fish thing comes from when we look into the science of animals, we're doing it from a very selfish perspective. So think of linguistics, for example. We talk about language, but it's only really human language that we talk about. We regard animal language, they put it in quotations because they think it's communication. That's what they say, because it's not as complex as human language. But it's weird because sign language is like a language. You know, body language is a language. You speak with your body. You can have a conversation essentially, or tell someone how you're feeling via your body. But when you look at animals, so for example, crows have their own language in the sense that, I don't know if you know about the hat test.
Oh, that they recognize their image in the mirror or something? Is that related to that, or?
No, so this test was this man wearing a specific hat. He attacked a bunch of crows.
Oh, wow.
And the crows communicated to the other crows, people with hats are bad, and they attacked the hat, like when they saw. So they told each other.
Wow.
Yeah, and they also did an experiment on, I think it's rats, where they were telling each other. It was either rats or it was monkeys, where the monkeys would get beaten up by a person, and monkeys who hadn't even been born, to experience, you know, being beaten, the monkeys would tell the other monkeys how to behave, otherwise they'd get beaten.
Mm-hmm.
So their behavior would change according to the experience of an animal who had existed. Yeah. They have to. How are they telling
how would
each other?
They communicate that? There's tons of stuff, examples with that. There's like the monkeys in, I don't know if it's Japan or some other place, but anyway, there were some coastal area where some monkeys started dipping their food in the salt water because they enjoyed the taste of the salt.
Mm-hmm.
And in like totally other areas of, like, I don't know, wherever this was, I don't remember what country it was, but the monkeys in, like, I don't know, like hundreds of miles away or whatever, started also dipping their food in salt. So it's like, and they say like they couldn't really understand like how that would have gotten communicated across, but they're clearly capable of communicating lots of complex stuff. There was one that I covered just recently where whales were found fishing in a different way than had ever been seen before. And they first observed it among only 2 whales in like 2011 or something. They like kind of dip down just below the surface and have their mouths open. And because like their mouths are kind of sticking out of the water just a little bit, like the ridges of their mouth, birds will start circling around. And fish that are nearby, they see the birds and they recognize them as like a danger and predators. The whales are just kind of hanging out like stagnant. The fish starts swimming down into the whale's mouth because it's just sitting there like with his mouth open.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden the whale just goes, whoop, thanks for the bite, you know, and they just eat the fish. And so they said like this was like very drastic and different than they had ever observed among this type of whale doing before. And then by like whatever it was, 4 years later, they now have like, I don't know, 16 or 20 or I forget how many whales doing it. And they're clearly teaching each other how to do this.
Yeah, there was on I think it was on Blue Planet. There was an octopus and a species of fish. They work together to hunt fish. So it's a case of they communicate with each other through some sort of language. They can't just be like, oh, this is magically happening, because it happens quite a lot. It's the pattern that they see, where the octopus and the fish work together to go inside the reefs and fish, you know, bait out the fish, and then whoever gets it wins, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And as well as that, like again with whales, orcas, each pod has a separate language. So it's like, you know, an Englishman and a Spanishman coming together, and I don't understand what you're saying. Like, so it's,
wow, that's incredible.
Because we don't, and I think that's why we don't include them in this, because we don't understand them. So it's like, yeah, well, they mustn't have a language then. Yeah. And it's the same with fish. And I think that's why, you know, coming back to the whole fish aren't actually animals sort of thing, you know, it's because we can't empathize with them as much. We can't understand their behaviors as much, even though we've proven they are sentient.
Absolutely.
It's just
and they feel pain too, and that's been proven through science as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, I think, really crazy because like I said, I'm not proud of it, but I did a lot of fishing in my day. And even as a kid, like, I absolutely knew that fish felt pain. I mean, it's so beyond obvious. Like, the fact that somebody needs a scientific study to prove that, you've never been fishing. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, you're just an idiot. You're literally crazy. I've gotten into kind of arguments with people on Twitter and stuff about this. Like, people trying to tell me that fish don't feel pain. It's like, you just don't know anything. it's very obvious. I think a big part of it is like you just don't hear them. They can't make sound out of the water, the way that like a chicken or a cow. Or
they can't scream. No.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it.
But the people who are saying that to you, I'm betting, also said something about plants being sentient.
That's the other half of it.
It's like plants are, but fish aren't somehow. It's amazing. It's gymnastics. Liam says it's a very rare characteristic for someone to hold true to a principle long term. I don't know though. I mean, maybe, yeah. There are a lot of people I've met who are just disappointed. They go against something they've said, you know. Like, you know, people were like, I don't understand people who cheat, and then they cheat, and you know, or I don't, you know, life throws a lot at people and tests them, and I suppose it is kind of rare. It's because of what people prioritize. You know, you can prioritize ethics, you can prioritize the self in any form, you could you could prioritize convenience, you could prioritize a multitude of things, and I think a lot of the time people are prioritizing, you know, the kind of watch your back because no one else is going to do it sort of thing. I think that's very prevalent. So people are out for themselves. And it's so frustrating because I have this conversation with people who say stuff like that. And I'm like, well, if more people looked out for each other, we wouldn't have to always look out for ourselves. Because they say, oh, well, no one's going to do it. Like, no one does it for me. And it's just like, you're just becoming another part of this problem. Do you not understand? Like, oh, well, no one does this for me, so I won't do it. Even at work, oh, no one cleans this dish, so I won't do it. It's just like, well, if you start doing it, people are going to feel bad. They're going to do it. Absolutely. Like, just do it and see what happens. Like, if you're really troubled by the fact something happens, you're so annoyed by it, why is it so easy for you to do the same thing? Like, it's so you see it all the time. It's very frustrating. So I think Liam's sadly right. It's just I think it takes a long time for people to become wise to these things, I suppose, to even think about these things, and that's the problem. People make so many mistakes leading up to the point where they realize, oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That the damage is done, maybe.
Yep.
So it's all a pickle. That's what we say. It's all a pickle.
It is. And I think, if anything, I mean, this is why I would also say, like, be careful about who you kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say idolize or whatever, but yeah, like who you kind of like look up to and who you kind of follow and trust, because yeah, I mean, people just do weird stuff. And yeah, hopefully nobody stops being vegan because they liked Bobby or somebody else. Doesn't matter. I'm not picking on him in particular, but, you know, Vegetable Police, whoever, like, oh, I like that person, and then they change, so I'm going to change too. Like, hopefully that's not what they're doing. But I don't think you should idolize anyone. I think because anyone that you feel you should idolize, they're offering something to you that you appreciate. I just think you should take those parts that you appreciate from them and apply them to yourself, and that's kind of the most you should do. Like, you know, take their advice, but with a pinch of salt. And as well, when you idolize them, you see in the comment section people who clearly idolize these people, and it's like then you can't honestly hold them accountable. Yep. It's like, well, if you think they're so brilliant, you should expect better, and they will adhere to the better if they're that great. And that's what makes me worry. Like, if I was ever in the position of these people and I made a mistake, once you get bigger, people do start idolizing you. Would people be honest enough to call you out on some BS?
Yeah, and that's scary. That's almost, surely that's almost worse than being told you've done a bad thing. You know, just continuously being kind of enabled and not seeing what it is you're doing. And surely that will spiral a person. Like, you'll see like Vegetable Police right now. He's just been poisoned and like by some food, and it's just like he was in hospital, and it's just like these things keep constantly happening to him, and they're worse. And he had to sign a waiver saying that he didn't want surgery just in case he died. Like, I haven't watched a video from him since I watch Michelle Lowe, so she's my halfway.
I don't. I don't watch this stuff. I see the thumbnails every once in a while because Google's trying to get me to resubscribe, but ain't gonna happen.
Nah. Yeah.
I'm also not at all convinced that anything he says is true anymore. So
no, I'm not.
Who knows if he's making up this stuff too? I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
It's what I've said it a few times. When you look at his channel, like from the very beginning, it's been a silly man on a quest for health. He's marketing himself that way. Oh, I'm really dumb and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna try something today. Oh, and it's not gonna work. If something works for him,
he stops doing it.
Yeah, what's he gonna make content about?
Yeah,
like he's got nothing else because he's put himself in this kind of corner, and that's why you got to be really careful what content you make, because then that becomes your identity as a character. And that's why I decided, like, from the start I wasn't going to make a character, because who knows who I'm going to be in 2 years, and I want to still make content for as long as YouTube allows it. But he's made a character and he's cornered himself. And now that his character is so important to him, it's his livelihood, that he's got to do something stupid again, and he'll do something stupid tomorrow. Yeah. And so
I think you've really kind of got onto something there. There's a lot of parallels between kind of like the rock stars of yesteryear, where you could take somebody who was maybe, in their teens and sell them an image of themselves that they're the best thing since sliced bread, and when you allow yourself to be surrounded by agents and press people who are, really for their own benefit, telling you that you're God and you can do whatever you want, and you believe that, and you allow that into your ego, that's what you are, and that's like you can.
Isn't
do no
that how
wrong.
narcissists are made, by coddling parents and stuff like that? That's how a lot of them are made. You are brilliant. You are everything. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Like that mentality, you put it into people, and that's what happens. And that's why you're seeing, I feel, that the diet gurus. So back to Durian Rider, he for a while was saying, leave school, move to a cheap country, pump out loads of videos and make loads of money and be rich in a poorer country, and then just cycle all day and live this lifestyle. And then you saw, like, a year later, ad revenue happened, adpocalypse happened. Suddenly these people, they haven't got a degree, they've dropped out of school, they can't go back in because they've left, so they can't really afford to go back. They are stuck on this kind of journey for health. Raw Till 4 isn't popular anymore. What's popular right now? Eating animals. So they're going to have to keep doing this, because this is the life they've built for themselves. And that's why you should really just not listen to gurus. You should really just, it's a shame. A lot of people did that. And if you followed the people who were criticizing Durian Rider, you saw a lot of people fall off the wagon. Their channels fail. Goodness knows what they're doing now. Being stuck in a country that, they're not familiar with, they only went to for the purpose of being a YouTuber. It sounds silly, but this is what happened, was the case for a lot of people. I don't know why people followed Durian Rider's advice, but when you find someone who's got charisma, you think, God, they're the best thing since sliced bread, But it's perplexing, for sure. But yeah, if you do look at the people, a lot of them who are leaving veganism, I think it's for their character. It's for the character they're playing.
I would absolutely agree with that. It's definitely for the views. I really get that feeling with most, if not all of them. And I really think, like, they're going to sadly suffer health consequences as well. With somebody like Vegetable Please, it's obvious already, and with other people too. Like, they're on this kind of like never-ending quest for something that is probably unattainable, and that's something that I probably will do, like, a full video about this specifically, and really kind of like gather my thoughts, but like just kind of in a rambling way. Like, I have this view that like people just don't realize that like veganism isn't supposed to be this perfect life. Like, that's not what it's about. Veganism isn't supposed to fix your life and make it amazing. like there's
again, I
rainbows and
blame the
everything.
gurus. I blame the gurus.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if you just do this, it'll fix everything. Literally, that's how they marketed it. It's so bad. It's so bad.
And I think that's the thing, that like, you know, you can be fat and unhealthy as a vegan. You could be really fit and healthy as a vegan. You could be skinny and unhealthy as a vegan, and anything in between, and other stuff too.
Yeah, you can
you could be a jerk. You could be a racist. You could be sexist. You could be anything you want and still be a vegan. I mean, it has nothing to do with any of the other things. And this is the thing that I think gets lost on a lot of people. And they think like, you know, my skin isn't perfect. Okay, then veganism failed me. It's like, no, a philosophy of not harming other sentient beings for no reason is not something that can fail you. There is no such, it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, this is why I probably will make a video specifically about Bobby, because it really pissed me off. I saw one of his thumbnails and it said like, or maybe the title, I forget what it was, but he said something like, veganism failed me. Like, I didn't fail veganism, I didn't do it wrong or whatever. And then he says like, veganism failed me.
Just to throw it under the bus is just awful.
Yeah, right? And it's just like, a philosophy can't fail you. That's not how things work. Like, a diet can fail you if you pick the wrong one. A medical practice can fail you if they cut off the wrong leg, or, you know, stuff like that. But like, a philosophy of non-harm and compassion can't fail you.
Yeah, this is what's really annoying. Yeah, because and then they put the vegan diet, and it's just like, which one do you mean?
Yeah, there's a million and infinite variations.
Yeah, which one do you mean? Like, you can go on a low fiber, you can go on a high fat, you can go on like a junk food, you can go on a raw one. And it's just like, you look as well, again, this is, I think, part of the character they build. Like, Bobby went on a multitude of different diets. And he, you know, recently, just before this, he was talking about, guys, I will not, people are telling me to go carnivore, they're telling me to eat animal products, but I've had the experience of every single diet. I've gone on every diet. I've tried it. I know. And this one works for me. So I will not be eating animals anytime soon. I think that those were his exact words. And that's what's just annoying. It's just like, this is why you don't idolize people, because I was on the verge of really liking him, and he was going to come on my channel. I invited him to come on. That would be awkward now, because I would have to confront. I wouldn't be able to help myself.
Yeah. I wanted to do a stream with him too on one of his videos, and I left a comment, but he ignored it.
Yeah, it's really a joke, and but at the same time, for like a selfish reason, this is what we'll be talking about. This is a spoiler to anyone who's going to watch my video. Watch it anyway. Okay? I'm uploading it straight after. It's just it's not
good. And everybody subscribe to Ellie's channel. Whoever's watching, if anybody's of my viewers,
if I unsubscribe from Conscientious Omnivore, just subscribe to it, because you know you can't do both. You know, it's just too hard. You've got to add a little egg in there. You just have to. Okay, you can't. Yeah, but. No, what I was saying is, selfishly, I'm kind of almost happy, because we've been wanting this for quite a few years in the vegan community, you know, to be separated from pseudoscience, this kind of anecdote, you know, all like turpentine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's still rampant in the community, but it's not nearly as big as it was. All these different experiments, and you know, taking studies into your own bedroom. It's just like, never mind controlling for variables or anything like that. But you know, we wanted to be separate from that, and we wanted to separate the conflation of plant-based and veganism, which, when someone says the vegan diet failed me, that's exactly what they're doing. Because it's like, what do you mean? If you looked at my vegan diet, it'd be very different from the next person's. Mine's not good. By the way, it's not good. But
yeah, fantastic. Jago asked, what is the difference between plant-based and veganism?
Yeah.
I mean, Ellie, I think you've hit it right on the head. That's it. I mean,
that is the difference.
One is a philosophy and a way of thinking, and that can encompass any kind of diet you want. I mean, you could be literally the most unhealthy, obese, diabetic, like vegan if you wanted to. I mean, it's not gonna guarantee fixing your life. You could eat Oreos and beer and, I don't know, like chips like all day long. And like, you're not going to be healthy.
I'm a walking example.
But you know, and it's like, but then don't blame any subsequent health problems on the vegan philosophy.
If if I dared come out tomorrow, I was like, oh my God, I'm just not healthy, guys. I'm just going to have to start eating animal products. Just be like, okay, well, first, I haven't even, got blood work done. I wouldn't know. Obviously, I look at things like, what like Goji Man talks about, like every symptom of SIBO or something like that. I have like, so it's like, well, okay, might be, but I've always, like the insomnia and stuff. Like it's joke. If I dared, it's amazing because it's like, well, if the philosophy is important to you, and this is why I'm kind of glad that the kind of people who were plant-based, I don't think necessarily all of them were. Like, people are saying, oh well, Bonnie Rebecca was different, but then she said that she feels ethically sound, ethically comfortable with sourcing the fish where she's sourcing them from and the eggs. And it's just like, well, if the philosophy was true to you, would you say that? I don't think you could. How could you say that in a, but if the philosophy was true to you, you would work within the framework. You would do, and they've worked really hard, I think, to the naturopaths, they've looked for people, but I think if a philosophy is true to you, you just go that step further, because when it's the same with like harming a human, right? So say, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but say there was something deeply wrong with you, you didn't feel good, you had like really bad skin, something, and if you just kind of like harmed a human in some way, maybe you beat them near to death. If you did that, it's just like, how many people would do that just to get rid of some bloating, some underlying issues? You'd think, no, I why would I do that? Like, that's not going to fix it. Like, I've got to just.
I wouldn't harvest organs from like babies or something. Like to get stem cells or whatever. I don't know.
That doesn't. It's like, that's not going to really help my problem. Like, I can find other way. I don't know. Like, it's just hard for me because that wouldn't even cross my mind to do that, if there were problems.
Absolutely. Both Hummus Hero and Liam had really, really great comments right now. So Hummus Hero said that, people act like they drink from the Holy Grail and become immortal with the right diet. I think that's definitely absolutely true. People that are always on this quest. Yeah. It's always trying to get more and more and more out of something. I
think it's the fear of death, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fear of death.
And Liam hit it right there, hit it out of the park. He said, not to mention these people are getting older, and as each year passes, the veil of immortality of youth disappears, revealing ailments, poor genetics, aging, lifestyle choices.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, stuff catches up to you, man. I'm 40. Like, don't tell me it's like you're never going to feel an ache or a pain or something that you did. I mean, I've run huge like relay races. Like, I'm probably damaging my body by doing some of the stuff that I'm choosing to do. I go to jiu-jitsu. There's people trying to rip my head off my body. Like, my neck hurts sometimes. Like, I could blame it on veganism.
It's the kale.
It's like,
it's the kale.
If I ate eggs, I'm sure my neck wouldn't hurt. It's like, well, if I didn't go to jiu-jitsu and have somebody trying to twist my head off my shoulders, then maybe that would probably work too. Like, I don't know. They're just crazy.
It's just not even that. It's like, it's not even just food. It's like environmental factors, stress, lack of sleep, like maybe a certain pollutant in the air. It could be anything. It could be a certain chemical that you're allergic to. It could be, changing your washing machine powder. Like, it's all these things that come to affecting your body. Like, because like something as simple as what comes into contact with your skin. We don't think of our skin as an organ, but it is an organ.
Absolutely.
And we put rubbish on it every single day, and it's exposed to so much bad stuff. Even like Tim Sheaf, who he doesn't use like certain soaps or anything, and he has distilled water. He still goes out to London for business. If he's out in the fresh air all the time, I bet you like he feels a bit down and in the dumps when he goes to a heavily polluted area like London, because it has a massive effect on you. And I don't know why there's this fixation on food. It's almost as if it's like, like orthorexia isn't like a proper diagnosed eating disorder, but it's still recognized as a problem. It's like that. It's something like that. Because orthorexia is like obsession with
being
exercise, isn't
healthy
it?
and
And
yeah,
healthy,
well,
yeah.
and yeah, like everything you eat has to be super healthy. Like you can't have like a you know, a junk food like piece of cake or something or whatever.
Otherwise, you can have to, yeah. It's so. I think it does come from that, and this happens when you kind of like obsess over anything. Like my friends, even my vegan ones, are like, maybe you should stop you doing so many vegan things because everything I do, like I'm making music, it's like animal rights based. I'm like doing you know loads of projects that have something to do with veganism. That's not really healthy. It can't be healthy, like because
I find that yeah, it's actually really good to have something else that you can kind of be into and clear your mind sometimes too. Like, I mean, for me, the gardening is kind of like a perfect blend of things that I like doing because I really, really enjoy it, and it's not about veganism per se. So I actually have a lot of subscribers that are not vegans. I have tons of people signed up because they just watch the gardening videos. I think they get annoyed when they post these kind of videos.
The gardening
and
videos are good.
I'm absolutely certain I lose subscribers who sign up because of my gardening videos, and then when they start seeing some vegan content, they're like, "Oh, what's this guy?" And then they're like, so like I'll always have like kind of a surge of people, and then like there's always like a dip. It happens like all the time. Like I always go up like a handful of people, and then I'll lose one or two of them. It's really funny.
I mean, does it happen when you immediately upload? I think that's YouTube. It's a YouTube bot. It just every time you upload. This is why I've stopped uploading so much. That it filters out people, and they go. So don't take it personally.
I don't, but I think some of them probably are like that. They just you know they're like, I thought I was signing up for a gardening channel because like
you were an omnivore.
exactly. That's the other thing. But no, I mean like some of my most popular videos have nothing to do with veganism. So like, you know, I have like how to grow lychee from seed. I think that's my most popular video right now. It has like nothing to do with veganism. But in a way, it's kind of fun, and I actually, you know, consciously chose that kind of path for the channel because that's actually one of the main things I wanted to do is to reach people who are not vegans. Like you said, I didn't want to be a vegan character. I didn't want to make a caricature. I didn't want to be like my whole channel is just all like veganism all the time, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's not something that I wanted to do because I would get stressed. Like at the beginning we were talking about like viewing footage. I mean like there's only so much like animal cruelty like footage and stuff that I can watch. Like I get really emotional over that stuff, and yeah, like I don't know, like when I watched Earthlings I had to like stop it multiple times to like just go and do something else, and then I came back to it. And I think like if you do music, like yeah, maybe just every once in a while do music that isn't like vegan based, or
that's
if you feel it. I'm not telling you not to do it, but just
no. The way we're doing it, like this has got nothing to do with the flow, but it's like it's me and another guy, and he's not vegan. So the way we're doing it is the lyrics are applicable to multitude of things, but
that's cool.
The message, so it's like because I do have a degree in writing, so it's kind of like fun to play around with stuff like that. So it's like. Because I'm bearing that in mind that it's not good to fixate on it too much. That's why I've been incorporating, much to Izomazad's dismay if he heard me say this, but I've been incorporating like video games and other hobbies, jogging and stuff like that. It's got nothing to do with it because people were very much like, I know it's a good cause and whatnot, but you want to maybe do something else because it's all the footage. It's because I could see myself getting really irritated quick. Like there was just a period of time where it's just like so short for like a good month. And I was like, well, you know why? Because it's just like too much consumption of the same thing, and that's the problem.
I'll go a step further and say just like it can apply to other things too. So like political causes, anti-war. I mean, there's just literally something to be upset about all the time. I mean, the environment, just the human abuse, animal abuse. I mean, there's just literally something all the time. And I always find that there's kind of this balancing act. Like I remember being probably in high school and I saw this bumper sticker that said like, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And it's like, that's true. It's absolutely true. Like, I think if you are paying attention, you are absolutely outraged. There is something to be outraged about all the time. But unfortunately, just like, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't think it is. I think it's just most people. You can't live your life like that all the time, 24/7 being outraged. Like it's just,
No.
it'll eat you up. Like you'll just burn out, and then there will be no more videos. So like you can't do that to yourself. So
that's why though I think if you cater your content to suit your well-being as well, it's good. Like a lot of the content I make surrounding it, some of it's serious, but then I'll go to mocking it, and it's almost like a cathartic feeling instead of like, because I think that's what we'll see more of on YouTube. You know, something has to come take over, and I think people are valuing the philosophy more now that, you know, argumentation's being brought forward and legitimized by people like, you know, you got the Ask Yourself crowd, you know, who are really like you know, making you know, argument premises that are taken seriously, you know. And so people are interested in it in a philosophy sense. You know, it's going into that that kind of field. And then you've got people who just, they've heard the same argument over and over again. They want some form of entertainment. Because if you know, who's watching our channels most, like maybe not for you because of the gardening, but
well, I still think I probably have more vegans than not. So I mean, it's still a big part of my viewership, but I do have some people that are not.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, the vegans, they've heard it before. So I almost feel like sometimes I owe a service because I can see people getting wound up. I can see them, you know, they get angry. The comments get a bit more passionate, and it's just like, well, let's just have a moment to have a laugh.
Yeah, you need that every once in a while.
Sometimes the stupidity is just amazing. Like I got a guy right now. He's a plants rights activist on my Twitter. Right? Oh, there's so many of them. I don't know where they've been all my life, but I'm so glad they exist. And he's like, oh, well, don't you see the contradiction? And I was like, well, can you prove that they're sentient? Because the consensus is that they're not. And he's what did he say? He said, "Oh, I'll prove that they're not sentient." And I was telling him about the burden of proof because he'd come along and made a positive claim. And then he went on to say psychopaths aren't sentient. And I was like, how? And then he explained that psychopaths have trouble with empathy. And I asked him if he knew what sentience is. Like, because it's not got anything to do with empathy. It's just like self-awareness.
Or you can also ask him to show me a plant that has empathy.
Yeah, and he hasn't responded. And it's just like, well, I could have got mad about that, and you know, because just, you know, been in utter despair at the lack of forethought, you know, because that's just a very unintelligent answer to tell, you know, that whole thread was just a mess. Like, how are you thinking? Like, are you thinking? So it's like, I could have got really mad, but it's just like, I've just got to laugh, you know, just because otherwise,
yeah, you'd go crazy. I mean, you really can't take everything too seriously.
No,
like,
you can't.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see way more of that on vegan YouTube. Or I'm imagining, because YouTube has just come along with even harsher guidelines. I don't know if you've seen.
No, I haven't.
But now they're gonna they put harsher things on graphic content. They haven't said what that is, so it's going to be vague. They're using their bots more. You can actually get a strike on your channel for a thumbnail that the bot deems graphic or sexual or anything. And if you get 3 strikes in 90 days, your channel's done. So it's like, well, people are going to take advantage of that, like, aren't they? Yeah. Like, think of the carnivore crowd. They're just going to go report. And, you know, so I think, you know, either you're going to see more vegans just come on and do like lighthearted entertainment, you know, like Jacko Wacko style, you know, just come along with their personality and make people laugh.
Yep.
And you're going to see more science-based stuff. So like Michelle Lowe, Goji Man, you know, Mike the Vegan's always been there, but more of this is going to be appreciated. Like, it's like a breath of fresh air. And, you know, people are going to get consistently, because though it seems like everyone's giving up on veganism, they're not. Veganism's becoming more popular than ever. Normal people, and I say normal, you know, assuming we know what that means, if it means anything. But normal people aren't obsessed with their health. They're not obsessed with, you know, they're getting on with their lives. They've got a job, they've got kids. Like you quit your job and you're doing what you're doing, but you've got kids still. You've got a relatively normal life, one would say. And me, I've got to go work. You know, I've got, you know, and it's just like I haven't got time to think about macronutrients. I'm sorry. So it's like I think people are just going to be like, I'm fed up of seeing these people who don't hold true to their principles, but they've been preaching about it and judging people for all this time, and they're, you know, they've given it up. So people are going to get frustrated, and I think they'll appreciate a change in scenery. Like, you know,
I'm actually a huge fan of the plant-based doctors who are just doing so much to bring the science to prove these things that, like you said before, I think there was a view that, like, you know, somebody who was vegetarian for either health or ethics, like, you know, 15, 20, 30 years ago, they would have just been viewed as just these like, oh, you're just this like, you know, pansy, whatever, I don't know, hippie kind of person. Like they just would have been looked down upon as just being like emotion based or whatever. And now there's just so much science to prove
so much
the claims.
Bodybuilders, everything.
Yeah. And you just can't argue with that. And I mean, yeah, there's these like carnivore people who are literally stick their head in the sand and kind of do all sorts of like distortions of truth. But anyone with a even mildly scientific background, I mean, if you look through the stuff that, you know, the Dr. Gregors, the Campbells, the you know, Esselsteins of the world are putting out there, like, there's just no refuting that stuff. And I think that's really awesome. And I think, like, you know, even like you look at somebody like Vegan Gains, I mean, obviously I'm sure the changes he's made are probably very much intentional and probably very much so that he can still get ad revenue from his videos and stuff. But like, I actually am glad that he's toned down some of his stuff, because I think his content was wonderful. I think like his science is awesome. His like reading of the studies is great. His bringing all the kind of like nutrition information is really awesome. I think he's inspired a lot of people. I think the fact that he is a bodybuilder and athletic and all this kind of stuff, that's really inspiring. And by basically not allowing YouTube to take him out because he like was like swearing at somebody or just using language that is going to get flagged by the bots or whatever. Like, if he learns to play within that rule set, like, I know some people are really going to be mad because they'll be like, oh, he's selling out. But like, I don't care if he's selling out. He's getting his message across to more and more people. And I think, you know, in a way, like, it sucks that like you have to put on a filter, you have to censor yourself. But to some extent, it's like, he's growing up, he's becoming more professional, he's going to reach more people, and there's going to be more and more people that are going to not be able to refute the message, because you can't just point to him and say, oh, he's the crazy guy who talks about, you know, stomping people or whatever. It's like, if he's not doing that and he's polite, if you watch any debate with him, I've never seen him like lose his cool or like yell at somebody or swear at anybody in a debate. I've never
even
seen
with
it.
Amy Kay, the most frustrating debate he's ever had. He like, I think he yelled
totally
once, like,
totally
and
professional.
it's just, he was yelling, yeah.
And it's like, if you can't give somebody the ammo to fire at you, you know, like, what are they going to say? Oh, I don't like him.
Yeah, and the growing up thing is really relevant at the moment, because he's just brought a video out about Furious Pete. And
that was a great one.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think he was lying. I think he's genuine. He said that, you know, because when you look at, I won't bring it up because I think he's deleted those videos. But when you look at that before, as opposed to him now saying, you know, I really hope he doesn't, you know, it'll be sad for him and his family members, and, you know, it was good to see him, and I don't want to bring up bad blood, but and I can't prove it, but, you know, if you hadn't done all these challenges, if you hadn't eaten all these animals,
would
like,
it have helped? Yeah,
this
maybe.
might not have happened. Yeah, and you know, it's kind of hypocritical to, you know, be upset about, you know, losing your testicles. He was saying when, you know, the pigs are just literally having them ripped from them without, and it's just
no
like, well,
anesthesia. Yep.
And he was communicating it in such a kind of calm and respectful way, and just saying, look, come on.
Yep.
And it's just like, so I do think, though he might have, you know, done, you know, what people like Ask Yourself have done recently, where they've understood what YouTube is doing and kind of changed it up. I think as well, yeah, he has kind of changed his method, and I think it's through the debates he's seen that works way better.
Yep.
And the only time he gets like angsty is when he wants to kind of almost antagonize someone to debate him. Like, come here and crush me. You can't do it, you loser. And then when they gets there, oh, I'm going to be really respectful and and
polite. Yep. And it's a perfect you know, tactic. It's like, if you're the calm one in a debate, and the other person's a raving lunatic, you know, it's almost like at that point, you don't even need an argument. It's like people watching that are just going to be like, well, this guy kept his calm. This person was a raving lunatic.
I know they see that as winning. Yeah, they do. Yeah. And it's a shame because that's not necessarily the case, but
it shouldn't be. But I think in a debate, I've seen so many people say this, and to some extent I can understand it, but they literally say that if you shout in a debate, you've lost. That's it.
They do. They do say that.
Doesn't matter what you said. You are the loser. That's it.
Yeah, you could be talking about like, and that's why people shout a lot of the time, because there's a lot of emotion behind it. You could be talking about literally like something like, you know, FGM and get really mad because, you know, you've experienced FGM or seen, you know, and scream and shout, and people would think, yeah, you've lost to the pro FGM person. Like, even
I don't know what FGM is.
Female genital mutilation.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah.
I didn't want to say it, but
okay.
yeah. So it's like that's a thing that most people look at as abhorrent. But if it were in a debate setting, even though they'd be like, "Oh, I'm opposed to this," but they lost the debate, they'd probably be like.
And I absolutely agree with you. Like, this is what I'm saying though, that like even when it really shouldn't be the case necessarily, in a lot of people's minds, that is the case. So like in any kind of debate, I always try to be like pretty calm as a cucumber and just try to be. And I think the most frustrating one I've ever had was probably with Carnival. I think that was.
Oh God, I couldn't watch it. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to like
he was
be there.
So bad. The last one I did with him was just. It was really, really hard to.
Wait, you've done 2?
I've done 2 with him. Yeah. One we talked mostly about health stuff, and then one we did. He specifically asked me to do one on health. On ethics. He asked me to do the one on ethics, and we started it. It took like almost an hour before he just stopped talking about health. He just wouldn't let it go, and then finally we started talking about ethics, and like he was to the point that like. He wouldn't even answer a simple question like, do you think it's okay to come home from a stressful job and just beat your dog for no reason, just as stress relief? He couldn't even say that was wrong, you know. And it's like when somebody is that dishonest, that's just, you know.
If it's any consolation, he's actually pants with every single other person. So it's not a dig at you or anything. He's just really bad at debating. Yeah. Like I don't know how you did it, and I don't know how you did it twice. That's even worse. Like, well, but fantastic.
The first one I thought was pleasant. I mean,
I think that was the first one I saw, and he started getting a bit mouthy, and I was just like, oh.
No, he's not a nice person.
Not a nice person. No.
He's the only person I've said I won't debate him again.
It's funny actually.
He's dishonest.
Yeah, he is dishonest. I'll tell you why. Because someone came to my channel and said Carnival said he would debate you if you approached him. So I said, okay, well, when he learns how to like debate, he can come to me. You know, that's what I said. He can come to me. And apparently on a live stream, someone told me that he said I was scared to debate him. It's just like you never even. And I asked the person, because they said, "Oh, you're too scared." And I said, "How can I run away from someone who isn't chasing me? Like how? That's how."
Has he even asked?
He's honest. Like I put all my links. Right, it's not hard to find me.
Yeah, get in touch with you.
Yeah, it's just like, well, like that's not the truth. It's just like. Oh, I will debate most people, right? I debated that Stiesel guy. Like, you know, if Vohan's still here, he'll understand. You know, the drunk Liverpudlian guy? Do you remember him? You don't remember him? Oh, he was awful. But yeah, I would. It'd be very frustrating. But as Drago says, there's a lot of emotion where there probably shouldn't be in debates. And I feel like I can just separate it.
Yeah, but I think to answer that, I think the reason why that is because people get defensive about it. They can't not be, you know, taking it personally.
No,
like
exactly.
They automatically take it as an affront to them. It's their own, like, I don't know.
Yeah, their emotion's fine though. Ours isn't. Yeah. Like, it's not acceptable. Yeah, Vohan's still here. He knows all about Stiesel.
Leon remembers. I have to watch Leon. That one. I don't think I've seen it. Is it on your channel still?
Yeah, I think it's called Vegans Get Wrecked by an Intellectual, and it's me and Vohan.
Okay, I will.
And it's 20 minutes of him calling me the C word.
Oh, jeez. See, now that's inappropriate. Like, this is the thing. Like, if somebody starts swearing, like, I mean, that's when they get muted and booted off. Like, I don't know. That's not cool.
Yeah, no, he's been doing live streams since 2010, and he just gets drunk for them all. That's why I think he swears like a sailor. But yeah, no, I was if you watch Michelle Lowe's most recent video,
Who
Bart
is
K.
Michelle Lowe?
How do you not know who Michelle Lowe is? She's a lad. She's a lad. She's basically single-handedly taking on the carnivore community. Like she's just like she ain't
I
afraid.
am looking up now, and I will subscribe or whatever.
She's got the biggest
That's cool.
balls, right? She's awesome. But if you watch her most recent video, it's got the thumbnail of Bart K. And the things he's calling her, I won't say them, but I'll give you a hint. It's like he calls her an ignorant, arrogant, know-it-all C-word. He says that she's a idiotic bee. You know, it's just like, what? You're supposed to be like a doctor, albeit you got rejected from the field because your ideas were wacky. But if I were a doctor of anything, like even a doctor of like spade mechanics, right? Right, I would hold myself to a very, you know, I would wear like, you know, a certain uniform. I'd be very professional because I'd understand my, you know,
there's like a certain, well, but I mean, look at Sean Baker. It's like there's a reason why he's been barred, or disbarred, or whatever they call it. I don't know.
Oh, there's a funny thing about Sean Baker, right? You've probably seen it, but we can't talk about it if you have seen it. But there's something involving, you know, Tim, Ether Logos.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. There's something really funny. I will. It's okay. The fun. Guys. I'm telling you right now. Once it's revealed, because we got to keep it the momentum going. But once it's revealed, it involves Dr. Sean Baker. Or I should say ex-doctor, not doctor. Oh, and it's hilarious. I can't wait.
Okay. And if anybody doesn't follow Ethologos, that's Tim. He used to be called Tim Jong-un, right?
Yeah.
Or, yeah. Go follow him on Twitter, because I don't know, that guy's like a Superman.
He is the Superman.
He's a dad. He's a student. He works in a farm sanctuary.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a job. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know how he has time for... I don't know how he has time for Twitter, but the stuff he puts on Twitter, right? Like, seriously.
He's an angel. He's not even real. He's not.
I think he probably sleeps like maybe 30 minutes a night or something. Like,
no, when we were there, I'm pretty sure he went to bed the whole night, right? No, wait. We were up till like 5 a.m. So that's, you know what? I'm yet to have evidence that he sleeps like a normal person. He probably doesn't.
I don't. Right. I think he goes like, just kind of like dips his head for a little bit. 30 minutes later, he's like, okay, back to Twitter.
He's kind of, that's, you know what? I am becoming him. This is who I aspire to be. Because before this, I was like, I'm too tired to stream. I'm just going to lay my head down, and suddenly went, ugh.
And you're like, but wait, Tim wouldn't do that.
What would Tim do? Yeah,
we should make t-shirts like that.
He is an angel. You should everyone follow Ether Logos. And we did a video. He brought the Sunfruit Dan thing to my attention on my channel, where he's like selling turpentine.
Oh my god. I didn't even know that.
Okay, he's recommending it, and the sources that he has for reasons why you should drink turpentine. 3 PDFs, right? 2 of which have nothing to do with consuming turpentine for health. 1 of which is funded by a company that sells turpentine.
Jesus.
And it says in the I forget what it's called, but you know where it tells you who it's funded by. I forget what it's called. Affiliates of
or like the conflicts of interest or anything.
Yeah, it says this company were instrumental were instrumental in the financing and the direction of the findings. It's like, great. Well, I struggle to trust that. And
why anyone would think that drinking paint thinner is good for you, I will never understand.
Well, let me tell you the reason he thinks that, because he has nearly 100 Amazon affiliate links to turpentine. So, of course, you're gonna think it's good for you.
Well, of course, he'll think that it's good for other people to drink it.
Yeah, it's really good for you because the money told me so. So he brought that to my attention. But yeah, Ether Logos is a god, and he is. Prove to me he's not. I'm gonna do what the carnival people do. Prove to me Tim Jong-un is not a god.
Tim's awesome. Everybody should follow.
He is, yeah. But it's just. it's a state. But I think the way forward really is like I see it in outreach communities, because I've been doing a lot of outreach recently and finally like filming it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, yeah, it's cool. I think the online debates are quite the online debates are fun, but I think the in-person debates are better because people don't deploy as much sophistry in person.
And also they're a lot politer, I think.
They are way.
I've never had somebody like be confrontational in person the way that they would be through the kind of anonymity of like.
I actually have. There was just one guy the other week,
wow.
and he came up and he was like, "What's this about?" We explained. He went, "Why aren't you against halal?" And he was red in the face, screaming at us. And he had his kid, like, and she was like pulling him, saying, "Dad, we gotta go." And
wow.
He was
Did
like,
you tell him like, yeah, I'm against that too?
Like, that's why we're saying all of it. And he was like, no, that's not the point. I was like, it literally is the point. If we don't do it, any of this, how does that exist? It was just like, it's not the point. I've been a personal trainer for 40 years or something. I was just like, okay. Excellent. It doesn't tell me what you really know about health, though. Like, yeah. It was just like, how old are you? Do you live with your parents? Do you have a job? And I was like, why are you asking me these questions? He was just desperate to find something.
Yeah.
And from what I was thinking, he'd seen it. He felt inferior, and then he had to come over and find something about us.
All that.
Yeah. So it's like, I've got to go away not feeling bad about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you out to be something that I don't like, so that I still feel okay. And it's just like, it's so transparent. Like, why
it's good that you can see that, because it makes it less stressful for you, and that's important. Yeah. Because if you didn't know that, you would take that on personally. And that's not
no. It's all like, we're very fragile people a lot of the time. I'm massively insecure in certain ways, and in other ways not. That's why when people are like, you come across as really confident, I'm like, oh, good, but I'm actually dying inside. Really? Yeah. But it's it's all fragility and insecurity and just trying to not be wrong. We hate being wrong. I hate being wrong. I love being right. It's brilliant, you know. So it's just, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Hats off to you, because I've been kind of wanting to do it, but I haven't really had the time. And just this past fall, I actually met some vegan advocacy groups here in Budapest, and they do a weekly outreach kind of in like the city center of Budapest, like most popular, like walking, you know, touristy kind of district. And I've thought that, like, yeah, I want to kind of go down there and maybe see if I can help out. And because I think I would do well. Like, if anything, I would probably feel more comfortable speaking in English to people than in Hungarian. But I think I could do it in probably either language, and that might be something that I could help. So it's something I have like on my list of things to do, kind of like once we get our house situation settled and everything, that like maybe I'll start doing it too. And it's really great. Like I really applaud you for doing it.
It's good as well if you can do both, because then you could upload. So like, it's weird to think if you just speak. I only speak one language, unfortunately. It's weird to think that, you know, there's a whole community that doesn't speak English. Who is, you know, so if you could upload in Hungarian and you would reach a load of audience that you wouldn't have got any other way. So I don't know how well you speak. Like, what?
Well, I mean, I'm a native speaker of Hungarian, but okay. Like I never went to school in Hungary. So like I grew up in the U.S., but I always spoke Hungarian with my parents and at home.
Okay.
With my siblings and stuff, and I've been living here since like 2010. So
maybe the accent would be better.
Most people can't tell. No, most people can't tell. It's
really?
Not an accent thing. Yeah, like if I speak to people about general topics, they can't tell that I'm not a local Hungarian.
Okay.
You know, there's only some certain things, like I'll make some little very, very minor, and I mean like really minor, like grammatical mistakes every once in a while, or maybe if it's like some kind of like technical word that I wouldn't have normally like heard in a home environment, and if I pronounce it wrong or something like that, it's really like trivial minor stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like health things, like I don't know all the technical terms in like Hungarian, so like I would probably maybe just revert back and say it in English or something. So maybe I'm just thinking, like, I don't really know, but I'm probably worried more than I should be. Like, I don't think it would really be an issue.
Usually when you're talking to the public, it's layman kind of speaking. So, you know, you're using kind of basic language, and because you're not, people kind of
yeah, I can't imagine that they would like take out a study and be like,
it sometimes happens that you end up talking to a doctor or something, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep going. And I'm just not using big words. You can think I'm smart. But it's very rare. You're talking more to the common person. And it's not that the common person is necessarily unintelligent. I mean, a lot of people might not have the intelligence there as the common person, but I think it's more they haven't thought about it. That, you know, people online, like Carnival, though he's dishonest as heck, he's had a lot of time to become dishonest. Because he's had a lot of time to think about this.
Yeah, he's definitely worked on his little shtick.
But people on the street, you might be the first time they've ever actually thought about it, and they're like, I'll throw something out. So you probably would be fine. I think you'd be fine.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to try it anyway. I mean, if nothing else, I can just go and help, like hold the screen or whatever at first,
or
maybe,
film,
just to see. Yeah,
film other people and see what. Yeah. It's because you have to get someone to film for you, so you probably have to build a rapport anyway. So, but it'd be interesting. I'd like to see that. I'm sure people would, you know, who watch you as well would want to see that, because it's something that, especially if you're a kind of Socratic speaker, people want to see how you.
I'm not very good at the Socratic method, honestly. I talk too much. I don't ask enough questions, and it's something I've actually like been mentally prepping and trying to improve upon. So it's definitely, it would be good for me as like personal growth as well.
Well, if you do a cube, they encourage you to ask questions before anything else. So it's like, hi, do you know what this is? How does this make you feel? Do you think we need this? So it's you do, just because of the outreach you're doing and what you've been told to do, it does just slip in, and you're like, well, you know how you go into certain environments and then suddenly you become a different person. It's just like, and you're like, wow, how did this happen? Like it's kind of like that. It just,
and I'm sure if I was around it, like you say, I'd probably just pick it up, because if I see other people are doing it, and if I was just standing there just watching it for a little while, I'd probably pick it up.
Exactly. Karina said, is this Tim on YouTube? No, this is Conscientious Omnivore. And
I think she meant Tim, like Ethologos, maybe.
Yeah, I think she meant Tim Ethologos. No, this isn't Tim. I'm not Tim, definitely. Yeah, no.
Thanks, Leon. You put in his name. Yep. And that's his handle on Twitter too, I think.
Yeah, because he used to be Ethologic, and then it became Ethologos.
I didn't even know that.
But
or maybe I missed that iteration.
Yeah, it used to be Ethologic. I'm like an OG Tim lover, me. I know the ins and outs.
Yeah, he's good people. He really is. Like I've had a couple of just like private conversations with him in Twitter land, and he's like a legit nice person. He's like a really good doobie.
That's why I selfishly wish that he had like more time in the world. Like maybe he was allocated an extra like 5 hours every day.
Well, he's already only sleeping 30 minutes. Come on.
Well, true. So it's like I wish he was on YouTube, like, because he does videos sometimes.
Yeah, and
you are good.
I wonder sometimes about Twitter. Like, I only got onto Twitter actually because of like that whole vegan debate death squad thing. So it's like Liam and you guys and and Logan and everybody else, like at the beginning, like I didn't even know about Twitter. I never was on Twitter. I signed up for Twitter because Liam really told me. He's like, oh, you got to get on Twitter. And,
yeah, Liam and his ways. He's very like, oh, gonna do it.
Yeah, and I did, and it's really kind of fun and whatever. But like sometimes I do wonder about the like efficacy of it, because like I have more people following me on Twitter than I have subscribers on YouTube. And you just said the same thing, right, Ellie? Like, so it's like, and I wonder like sometimes I'll post stuff like, hey, my new video about whatever is up, and I'll post it. And it's like, I'll get like a fair amount of likes or a fair amount of retweets even sometimes. But like the video count doesn't go by the same, it's like, I'm like is it really, people are just tweeting it but they're not actually clicking the link, or like, I don't know.
I think really it's weird. The phenomena of the internet. It's made our attention span basically about 15 seconds long. So that's
okay. So clicking on my 15-minute video is like not gonna happen.
No, yes, it's that's why Instagram is so popular. That's why Twitter's so popular. It takes you 15 seconds to read a tweet. Not even that. It takes you 15 seconds to watch an Instagram video. And our attention span has gone down drastically, and that's why everyone's kind of worried about children and their memory retention and their that's why you're seeing people becoming kind of sadder because they can't get things immediately. It's which is it's a natural thing. Low risk, high reward. You have to fight that all the time. And things like Twitter and Instagram, I love them dearly, but they are working against that. So
and it's hard to have a good conversation because you're limited by that character set.
I know, but luckily now they because the character limit used to be like half. It's 280, I think. Now it was half that, and now you can add threads. But you'll notice the attention span come in again. The further down the thread you go, the less likes you'll get.
Less likes, less replies. Yep.
That's why I'm cross-platforming now, and I would encourage other people to do so because things like Instagram and Twitter, you're going to reach different people, and it's more work, obviously, but you got to put in the, you got to put in the time.
I don't have an Instagram. I'll probably do one at some point because I like taking pictures of my food. So if nothing else, like you can just throw those up there every once in a while. I do it on Twitter, but like, I don't know.
Well, there's a way you can get like different apps and everything where you can put
like link
them on
and
one
post
site.
it, multiple places. I think Tommy's good about that. Tofu Tommy.
Oh yeah, so
he does a good job of like cross-linking all his stuff.
Yeah, you can't put an Instagram photo on Twitter. I think it's because of the competition.
It's a link. Yeah,
it's a link. But on Facebook, you can get an Instagram post, link it, and it'll go on. On Tumblr, you can do that. So you just got to become savvy of what works where. But yeah. The limitation, and you can't change the tweet spelling. Yeah, there have been so many times where I've got like
got one typo, super annoying.
I'm like, oh, I either delete it and keep my pride, or I leave it up.
I've yet to delete one, so it's like I think that's the right thing. You just leave it. It's Twitter. Like, who cares?
I can't. But no, who's gonna think I'm a genius if I spell like wrong? Nobody. So
or there instead of there.
When I do that, I'm like, God, I'm tired. It's like I need to go to bed, man.
Your.
That rarely happens because I'm a bit like it's because I do writing and I'm just that's
okay. So you're good with those little things.
I try and my grandma's speaking is really bad. It's so bad. But when I'm writing, I'm just like it's
looking at it.
Like we're going to go. But I don't know how. It's interesting. But
and one thing you have to say though too is that if you have a tweet, something about ethics, something about animal rights, and the only reply that comes back is like you spelled whatever word wrong, it's like you've won. That's the equivalent of yelling in the debate, right? Like if you're nitpicking about grammar and like you wrote the wrong there, like
the only time I correct people's grammar, right, is when they're calling me stupid. I just say
that's totally legit.
If you're gonna call me stupid, just make sure you're using the right words. Okay, that's the only time because I don't think, it seems that grammar, especially with the theirs, the yours, the where apostrophes go, the punctuation, it seems like it's a real trouble for a lot of people. So, and really smart people, and like dyslexia and stuff like that. So, I try not to let it. I try and let it be a personal, thing.
Yes. And as Leon points out, Twitter is a presidential medium. I mean, we can look at even grammatically correct tweets by the president of the United States and still be kind of in shock and horror.
Exactly.
And they're perfectly grammatically correct.
Oh, yeah.
The message itself is what's horrifying.
A lot of exclamation marks and then just one word. Or not good.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious. How long have we been going, by the way?
I think it's going to be time to be finishing.
Oh my God,
so hopefully we've discussed now all you need to know about UK hunting, fox hunting, sabbing, trail hunting, what all these different terms mean. And
I'm going to do the Liam Anthony thing, right? I have a lot to thank that man for, because he used to annoy me because he'd be like, you have to upload every day. And then it got to a point where I was just like, fine, I will. And that didn't stop for about a year. So like, and the whole, you know, cutting, what did he say? He said something like, you don't need to create content to create content. Like, so like, I think.
I'm not sure I understand that.
So like, you've made the stream, right? But then you can make like 10 videos from it, because we've talked about loads
so many different topics. Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'll put this on my main channel and then cut it up on my second channel, and that will work. So
cool.
We've covered a lot.
We have. It was really fun. We have to do it again, Ellie. And I think there's more stuff that I want to cover about hunting too. And Tommy said he's available next week. And I would love to discuss some more stuff, because I actually prepped some more information to talk about hunting. I wanted to talk about like North America kind of things, topics, and I want to talk about like wolves and like large predator animals. And I have some information on that too. So I think we can definitely cover more stuff.
I think I could be free for that. I'm not sure, because I've got like a job thing, but I'm being pushed around before I've even got the job.
You should quit your job and move to Thailand.
I should eat 30 bananas a day and get loot. I should.
The drugs are cheap.
The women are no.
Well, yeah. Let's stop. Let's
no.
Okay. So yeah, cool. Thanks everyone for being on, and really, Ellie, thank you. I really had a great time, and I think really a good discussion, and it's good to get your perspective, because you're there, and I really, I really just want more people to know about this stuff, like with the fox hunting, because it's outrageous. I mean, like, I really think most people probably don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people in the UK didn't know about it, like all the kind of devious, like dirty stuff that goes on. Like they just think of it as this, like, oh, it's cute. They ride around on these horses and they kill those nasty foxes. They don't realize about the killing the dogs. They don't realize about the damage to the horses. They don't realize about a whole bunch of other stuff. So
yes, it's very important. The more people know, the more outrage there is, the more pressure there is, because unfortunately you're not going to get these people most of the time. You're not going to get them to care, so you've got to just get the consensus to work against them. Like, and people might think that's militant and evil, but we've had to do this many times over in history. Where we've had to go, okay, well, you might like it, but this harms someone else, so you've got to stop or you'll be in trouble. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is an important thing towards it. I mean, we just have to get more people aware, and once you're aware, it's kind of like, I think somebody in the comments said it too, that like if you're willingly doing something and knowingly doing something, it's really different than if you're just unwittingly doing it.
Yeah, it was the narcissist comment, wasn't it? Like that it's kind of narcissistic too.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's 100% right. So it's like, once you open people's eyes, they still have the choice, but then it's an informed choice. And now like, I'm just doing it because I don't give a crap. And
that's when you can find out who a person truly is. So yeah, that's very true.
Cool.
We'll make them realize. We will.
It was a blast. Thank you.
Let's make vegan great again.
Yeah. That's a great one. We'll make everyone vegan and let the carnists pay for it. That's sort of like the wall, right? Like, make Mexico pay for the wall. Let's make carnists pay for like all the environmental damage, the health damage. Like,
they got to pay for the Beyond Burgers.
Like, think about how cool that would be if you got like a tax credit for like being vegan.
That would be cool. That would
be awesome. Like, you don't have to pay income tax or something.
I think, not to add another conversation, but I do think that instead of like negatively taxing people for something they're doing,
give them the incentive.
Positively tax, definitely. But
give them the carrot, no stick.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yep. Cool. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great. See you.
See you.
Bye.